Hello. Also, hello people who are watching in the future because no one's on the stream yet. So this is a static site quick start. We're going to attempt to run through a very fast way to get a simple website that has an H card on the front page, basically a website at your domain that says, hello, this is me, with the proper markup so that it's machine readable, with the goal being that depending on how quickly your DNS setup propagates, you should be able to log in to the IndieWeb Wiki with using your domain after we're done here. So who here has a domain that they want to use? That's anybody? Hopefully everybody. Nobody.
They moved my moved my server, so my IPs don't limit. I never bothered to fix it.
I have space in the fast mail. I may have a little file.
Okay.
Can you start us from like the home page, just to show us how you got to here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
I think that would be helpful to answer your question of like.
Yeah, we'll start here. So I think there's just get started now.
So join the IndieWeb, get started now. Yeah, and then this has like.
Yeah, these are the first things we're doing. So you've been introduced to the community, and congratulations, you're a part of it now. Step one complete. So the next step is have a personal domain, and there are lots of ways to get them. We'll go through one. A place for your content, we're going to go through that as well, and then setting up your homepage. So we're going to try to knock all of these out.
But if you scroll down, hopefully you see those as actual steps, right?
Or
yeah,
those
there we go.
Hashtag links, they all link down.
No, go back like on that page.
Oh, very good.
So if you look at the table of contents, it's all in the table of contents.
I see.
Yeah, so you don't have to link out like.
Yeah.
In fact, that might be a bit of a distraction. We should probably change the definition. But
right, because that says it here.
So yeah, getting a personal domain and then GitHub pages, and.
Oh, this is great. I didn't have to have this session at all. Everyone just read this page. It's perfect. Yeah, and actually we can walk through these, and if there are any questions, we can go through those. I will be doing this on the projector for a domain that I bought with Namecheap, but I never set up anywhere, and I'll just see how far I get with it. So I have already registered a domain. It's here at Namecheap. So I'm going to go to my domain list. Ugh, I'm going to get kicked out of Namecheap. All right, I'm going to spend some time doing two-factor auth. Great. So here, this is the website that I want to set up. I'm going to make a little one-pager for a little group called Baltimore Crypto Party at baltimorecrypto.party. And if I go in here to manage, I can change my DNS setup. So you talked about like your IP addresses being weird, and you've got your hosting through Fastmail.
Right.
So nice. So my stuff is set up. These are all the defaults, and it just looks like garbage. They have a parking page set up at my domain currently. So I'm going to leave that for now and go back to the list. So I have a domain. I know how to edit the DNS. This is actually important. I mean, everybody here has a domain, so you probably know, but domain privacy is important to turn on because literally anyone in the world can see the name, address, and phone number that's attached to every registration. So if you have an option and you haven't bought that for your domain, you should do it. Turn it on. The next thing we're going to use is GitHub Pages. Does everybody know GitHub?
Does everyone have a GitHub
Very
account?
good. Yeah.
Great.
Excellent. So skipping that. It's important to have an account, and everybody knows, or does everybody know what GitHub Pages like what it does? Anyone know that? So GitHub Pages, you can learn more at pages.github.com, and I think we've got a link to that on the wiki as well. Essentially, they have a simple way to turn any repository into also a website. And by default, they're going to be hosted somewhere at like, oh, I don't have one, I don't think. Who's that has one? Do you have a github.io page?
I do for like my W3C specs.
Okay.
So you just want to go to contact.github.io.
Yeah, I wanted to
slash-
see if that's a thing.
I mean, I don't know if I have a home index for it,
Oh,
but
okay.
go to /post-type-discovery. So this was something I just like, I didn't want to create a separate site for it, but
Oh, nice.
this is one
Yeah.
of the specs I work on.
So this is an example. Like this is, I mean, it is just a web page, and it happens to be hosted here. And anyone who's got a GitHub account can make these, and they just turn out to be, so like Tontech.github.io means that it belongs to Tontech. So we can go look at this at github.com/Tontech/post-type-discovery to see the source for this site. And it's very simple. In fact, I'm not sure what all these files are.
It's because it's generated
Oh, right.
from the source,
This is generated from another
from the
tool.
index.source, yeah.
But we can look at these files, and basically there's just one index.html file that's going to get served at the root of the domain. And it's just a regular HTML file. It's got a lot of inline CSS. This is all generated by a tool, so it's kind of inscrutable, which is fine. So what I'm going to do is, let's see. Okay, good. There's no like guide that I'm not following correctly. The IndieWeb has a blank GitHub Pages site that actually has some good markup built in. It's very simple, but this is a repository that you can go to. It's at github.com/IndieWeb/blank-gh-site.
But it's linked to from getting started, right?
Also, yes, good point. Is that right? Yeah, here it is. So under GitHub Pages on the Getting Started page, there's a link to blank GH site. And
Which, by the way, is in the sidebar of every page.
Getting Started?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's in the quick links because it's such a common, like, where was I? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, this is also super simple. There is just a README, which is the text that shows up here. And there's
what to do.
Yep, and steps for what to do. And there's an HTML file. So we'll be editing this in a bit, but this is essentially going to be our homepage. If you want to see what it will look like, I wonder if they set this up. IndieWeb.github.io/blank GH. What is it? Oh no. Too many tabs. Blank GH site. Oh, that's curious. It's actually not enabled as a GitHub Pages site.
Oh,
So
itself?
Yeah, it's not configured for it.
So, yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
So that's,
So there are some steps missing. We might go through this. So what I'm going to do is clone this so that I have my own. Nope, that's not what I meant to do. Scroll up. I'm going to fork this, which is going to make my own copy that belongs to my account that I can make changes to. I'm going to put it here. So we're forking, copying. Great. And then I'm supposed to, according to the instructions, rename it. So I will. What did they say? The instructions are, oh, did I lose the thing? Here we go. Rename it to yourusername.github.io. Okay, that's very specific. And I'm not going to do that, actually. So I'm going to call this Baltimore Crypto Party. And just hit rename. But you should call yours something like your website. I like to just use the website minus the dots. I find that is pretty easy to remember. And the next thing under settings, I'm turning off like all the little extra features because I don't. This is like a place that I'm storing my code. This is not going to be like a public repository that I expect people to collaborate on. So yeah, if you look under settings, this is the important stuff here. There's a chunk called GitHub Pages that essentially tells you what it's supposed to do. It starts out disabled. So to enable it, you're going to choose what branch of the GitHub repository it's going to look for content in. And because this is a fresh repository and there's only one branch, I'm just going to choose the master branch. For other kinds of projects, you might have like a docs folder because you're like, because it's the source code for a real project that you want to make a website for. But in this case, the content is just the website. So I'm going to have it use the master branch. And there's an option to, let's get back to that. So once I save it, now there's more options here. You can choose a theme, which like feel free to dig into. They have a lot of support for Jekyll. And there's some nice stuff in there that you can just like start cranking out blog posts, but that's not what we're working on. So I'm going to skip that for now. And I'll pay attention to this. The custom domain section, we'll be coming back to that. Actually, yeah, let's see what we have first. So it makes a nice link for me now that I've enabled GitHub Pages. It says your site's ready to be published. So I can look at that, and this is the content that I have. And we can actually take this to, oh, wait, Tatek, do you know where on the IndieWeb Wiki was the quick way to a microformats parser that would show this H card?
IndieWebify.me.
Yes. So there is, there's a site called IndieWebify.me. It's just IndieWeb with an IFY. And one of the top things here is, yeah, this is all I want, right? Is under setup web sign-in, you can paste in your new website's URL. And it will, no, that's not quite what I wanted.
What?
Because it's trying to check all the realmies.
But it has an HCard test.
This is what I wanted. Yeah. So yeah, scroll down and under check your homepage HCard, you'll see. So it didn't find a photo. It suggests to add it. It
says success.
Name. Yeah, there is. So there is an HCard. The name there is Jane Smith. It found a URL that's elsewhere. In this case, it's a fake Twitter. And there are suggestions to like add a bio or add your email or add a photo. But essentially this means like, okay, we're hosting a web page somewhere. It's not at our domain yet. And it's got microformats. So that it says like, I am this person according to this microformats H card. So let's try and point our domain at it. And to do that, let's see if the wiki has these instructions. Oh, it doesn't. It's in here, optional, point your domain to GitHub. So using a custom domain with GitHub Pages, I find this very confusing because there's a lot of drilling down in this documentation. Maybe the quick start will do it. So choose a custom domain, register it, add your custom domain to your site. So that is an important first step. So we're going to go to the settings of our repository, and we're going to enter the custom domain in the settings there. So my custom domain is baltimorecrypto.party. I'm going to save that. And so now if we go back to this page, it's actually going to try to forward to baltimorecrypto.party, which is not registered currently.
Why is it going to www.
That's because of the default DNS configuration I have.
Oh.
Here it is, yeah. So what's happening now is like, when I ask GitHub for that page at its old address, at the github.io address, it's actually trying to forward me to the canonical domain. So that says like GitHub is ready to go. It's ready to host this thing. But my DNS is not. So when the browser tried to go there, it ended up like bouncing off of my DNS setup. So instructions, where did you go? So, and we can come back to the GitHub instructions.
Which are a bit of a maze.
It's a lot. There's a lot of drilling down.
So maybe we can provide like the actual quick start
actual quick
rather
start,
than what
yeah.
they do, which is like, here's a slightly smaller maze.
Yeah. At least a maze with signs posted everywhere.
Yeah.
So what I want to do, and oh, they do explain this. So you have a lot of options for custom domains. What I want to do is to set up what's called an Apex domain. So just the bare name, BaltimoreCrypto.party, I want that to be my domain. I don't care about www in front. Oh, actually, they have an option for doing both. So let's check it out, because most people usually do want this. Yes, okay. Their instructions are 2 steps. So in order to use both an Apex domain and a www subdomain, you do the steps for each of those separately. So we'll dig down into setting up an Apex domain. God, this documentation, lots of tip boxes and warnings and notes, but what actually matters is to come way down here to the configuring A records with your DNS provider section, because what you need are these 2 IP addresses. So I'm going to copy this, and I need to make an A record that points to that IP address for my domain. So I'm going to delete the records that exist now. And these instructions will be different depending on who your DNS provider is, but these are the ones for Namecheap. All right, I don't know why those came back. Namecheap, get it out of here. Get it out of here. It keeps putting them back. I guess if you delete all of your records, Namecheap adds some parking pages. Good trick. So I'm going to add an A record. The host, you use @ to specify that you just mean the Apex domain, the bare domain. And I'm going to paste in the IP address for GitHub. If anyone on the stream cares, it's currently 192.30.252.153. I'm going to make that A record. And they actually have 2 different, let me drag this tab here. They have 2 different IPs, so they want you to make 2 A records. I have too many tabs and I can't find where I am. So I'm going to copy the other one. The other one is, the IP is the same except it ends in 154. So I'm going to make a new A record. It's for @ is the host because it's the Apex domain. I hit check to add that again. And I think now I can delete the parking records that they put there because I finally have specified my own. Good. And so now my DNS should be all set up. But importantly, DNS takes a while to propagate. So they have a little command you can run here on the command line to like see what's happening, see if you're actually at the right thing. So I'm going to use this dig plus no all plus answer BaltimoreCrypto.party. And looks like it is answering with, nope, that's incorrect. So it's answering with some other IP address, some 192.64. So I think that's the parking page, which means the DNS is not ready. And it's easy to get stuck here. So like we pretty much can't do anything until that resolves, because we can sit here and refresh this page all day. But until the browser can actually get a DNS answer that will talk to GitHub, we can't see GitHub. So in order
flush DNS
out of my browser, yeah, the before that happens, like the server needs to return the proper response. So like yeah, so it's like the DNS network is still reporting the wrong IP. So instead of worrying about that right now, I'm going to go through the rest of the steps. But ideally, like you'll set the DNS, and go do something else. You know, depending on your provider, it actually only takes like an hour, even though they claim it can take up to a day or two. So for now, what I'm going to do is remove the custom domain, and you can just blank out that box and click Save. And once that's done, it means it will actually serve it back where it was. So if I now go to martymcguire.github.io/Baltimore Crypto Party, I see, no, I still got redirected. Oh, because my browser did cache that. Yeah.
Try it in Firefox.
Cache the redirect. Firefox up. Where's my Firefox? It's asleep. Yeah, I'm just going to use a different browser. What is this? Require GitHub.io. Baltimore Crypto Party. Great. So we're back. We can see this. See this page. This is my new website, and I'm going to go ahead and edit the parts of it that I need to in order to actually like have real values. Like it's a completely fake identity right now. So I'm just going to come into the repository and click on index.html, and then from the GitHub interface itself, you can come in here and just hit this little edit pencil to edit the file directly. And that just turns this like code box into an editor. And so I'm gonna enter it. Mine, this part where it says, hi, my name is, it's a span with a class of p name. That's the value that will become name in the microformats once it's parsed. I'm just going to have it say, my name is Baltimore Crypto Party, as though that's a human being. I'm going to change the text. This is I'm a human on the internet to I am a what? I am a group of encryption anarchists. It's not really true, but on the internet. You can find me on other websites below. So this is where HCard stuff gets interesting. So I have I actually have a Twitter account set up for this group. It's at Crypto Party Vault. And so I'm going to take the URL for that Twitter account, and I'm going to replace this here. So this is class URL. That means when it's parsed, the parser should expect the value to be a URL. So it will look at this href, and that's going to be the value that comes back is this Crypto Party Vault Twitter account. And now that I've made those two changes, I basically just changed the name and then this Twitter URL. I'm going to scroll down and use the commit box at the bottom. Just going to give it a comment that I updated index.html. I will say update name and Twitter URL and hit commit. And once that's committed, I can look at that back in Firefox. And it may take a little while. GitHub runs a process to actually like rebuild the site using Jekyll. Looking at the right thing, right? Yes. Why is it still showing the old data?
It's showing the same thing.
Yours is also not updating? Yeah. It takes a while. Sometimes GitHub pages, I think they say it can take up to 10 minutes for a page to update. I know, it feels like forever. And sometimes it's instantaneous. There we go, it finally worked. So yeah, now I'm gonna take this back to IndieWebify me and just verify that it has what I expect it to have in it. So I'm gonna scroll down to the check your homepage HCard and validate it. Great, so it says, my name is Baltimore Crypto Party and I have a URL for this Twitter account. Now the next step is if I want to actually use this as my identity to like log into the IndieWeb wiki, I'm almost set to do that. So we can go to this web sign-in section on IndieWebify Me. I'm going to paste in the URL for the site as we have it now and hit test. And it's going to check it out. So what it does is it fetches my homepage, finds that I have this link with rel equals me, which is here in the source code, and that it links to Twitter. And then it's going to actually check Twitter and see if it links back. And it's going to say, no, it doesn't. Oh, look, and actually this is sweet. I didn't know it did this. So IndieWebify Me says, oh, you're, it's hosted on github.io silo. Oh, that's probably, no, that's got to be a hard-coded case. They're detecting that and saying, hey, you're on GitHub without a custom domain. You really should use your own custom domain. And
Oh, yeah.
and yeah, and so
Yeah.
that's great. That's a good hint, and essentially, like, once the DNS propagates, we'll be in good shape. So
It tells you how to do it.
yeah, and oh right, it even points to an article. Very good. But we do need to fix this problem, which is that the Twitter account doesn't link back. And this is kind of an impasse because the way to fix this at the moment is to log in to Twitter and in the bio, put in my URL. But I don't have, like, my website is not functioning at the domain that I bought because DNS is still propagating. So what I could do instead is I could put in, oops, let me log out of Twitter. I could put in the github.io thing, and that's actually what I'm going to do now just to show that this works. But the thing that I should actually do is wait for DNS to propagate and come back to this another time. Let's log in. Logging into Twitter. Okay. So in Twitter, I'm going to go to my profile. I'm going to hit edit profile, and I'm going to change the URL on my profile to, I'm going to accidentally copy what I meant to paste. I'm going to change that to my github.io URL for now. And once that's saved, I can actually come back to IndieWebify Me and test the setup web sign-in again. And this time it says Crypto Party Vault works perfectly. So I should be able to log into the IndieWeb Wiki using this identity. So to just test that out, we'll go to indieweb.org. Go to the login link in the corner and punch in this long github.io URL as my web address. It's going to do the same thing. So it's going to search the homepage, find the Twitter link, and then check Twitter to make sure that it links back. And once it does, I can click the OK button. Or sorry, I click the button, which will take me to Twitter. And we're essentially saying that by putting this rel.me link on our homepage and then linking back, we're saying the person who controls this website is also the person that controls this Twitter. And saying, I trust Twitter. I trust that if Twitter says this person is who they say they are, then they are also the person that can do things on behalf of this website. So we're essentially like delegating our authentication to Twitter. And so I'll say, I will authorize the app. All it's really doing is verifying that I control this Twitter account. And let's see, when I come back, shouldn't it show me who I am? What does this look like on? Yeah, I didn't think about that step in the demo. I'm just going to go directly to IndieAuth. So the IndieWeb Wiki uses a service called indieauth.com to do the actual login. I'm going to go down to the try it box, do the same rigmarole. I'm actually already logged in through there. So click the Twitter button. It's going to redirect me. I've already given it permission. And yeah, now it says you successfully authenticated. And you can see here's the full URL. That is my identity. And so now we should be able to like, it's a good wiki page, getting started.
Oh no, you're gonna create.
Oh, like an IRC people or?
Well, so it's. Is it actually did it actually let you log in with the GitHub.io URL?
It sure didn't. It seems like it bounced me.
I think it, yeah.
It walked me through the process and then.
Well, IndieWeb accepted it, but I think the IndieWeb site
Doesn't like it.
wants you to use your own domain.
Yeah, it doesn't let you log in. It doesn't give you an error though.
Oh, that's not good.
So yeah, that's interesting.
Okay, that might be new. I thought it used to give you an error saying, hey, you really should set this up on your own domain.
Right, which is true. So I'm still waiting here. If you have your domain pointed at the right place and DNS is answering, oh yeah, so this little number is the number of seconds until this DNS record expires. So I have another, I think that's like 16 minutes before I can expect the new IP address. And we'll be done here. So that's pretty much it. Like once your DNS is propagated, you can go back to your GitHub pages and set the alias again so that it will only serve your website at your domain as opposed to at the github.io domain. And where did it go? So many pages. And you can go from there. Like it's super stripped down. You know, you're writing HTML by hand. But with tools like IndieWebify Me or the tools at microformats.io, I always find these really useful. You can scroll down, because there are microformats IO parsers, or sorry, there are microformats parsers for pretty much every popular language right now, but they also serve as a demo. So you can come in and like punch in your URL. So even this like long github.io URL, and hit parse and see that it's got an H card and a name. Like we already knew all that was there, but that's very useful when you're debugging. So like as you're working on your H card, you're adding other RealMe links to other sites, you're adding an image. This is really useful to make sure that the parser actually is going to see the thing you want when you try to log into like the IndieWeb wiki. I think that's it. And I think we're about out of time. I think the big to-do from that is to now go turn that into a real getting started tutorial.
I think most of what you showed is on getting started, but you mean the
specific
GitHub steps that are so right now we link to GitHub's documentation.
We should probably skip directly to.
We should just say what they are instead of linking to them because their documentation's too big.
Yeah, and I think it's that it asks you questions because it's like, do you want an Apex domain, a subdomain, and
too many questions.
Yeah, we should really just probably tell them Apex domain and not even tell them what it is. Just link to the thing to have your bare domain. Just have your domain name. I think we'll call it that. Cool. Hopefully that was useful. Does anybody have any questions or concerns? Can I start over? Let's do it again.
Do you have your own domain or no?
I do.
You do already?
Yeah.
But you use it for email?
I use it for email for Fastmail.
Okay.
So I know I had to go into Namecheap and point it to Fastmail
Right.
in order to get.
But
within Fastmail, there is a way apparently to create files and folders that you can like 5 gigs.
Nice. That's cool. Yeah. And if you're happy with that, like, just use it.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I didn't even realize it was there until I did some searching earlier.
Oh, nice.
It's like, oh, hey, we got some space.
Yeah, that's a nice thing to find out. Yeah, I like Fastmail a lot.
Were you able to get on the Slack or the IRC at least?
No. Not yet.
Okay.
I tried on the Slack, but then I missed it. It's been a while since I've actually registered for any kind of a Slack channel. So it's like, your email address is not registered.
No.
Yeah, I have to request.
Yeah, there's a form on chat.indieweb.org/Slack.
Okay.
Yeah. Chat.indieweb.org/Slack.
And there's
Let's get you set up there.
Punch in your email.
Oh yeah, it should look like that.
Yeah. Great. Well, that's it. So whoever's editing this video in the future or looking for timestamps, you can stop now. This session's over. We did it. What's next on here?
I think we're doing
WordPress.
howdy.
Hey, how's it going?
For IndieWebCamp? Awesome. Yeah, feel free to set up and join us if you like.
Oh, I didn't get to the HTTPS stuff.
That's okay.
Okay.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Just even getting it set up with this is, plus I don't think we have any quick starts for HTTPS right now.
No.
Cloudflare and stuff.
Yeah, I had actually, this was the first time I walked through it and got it to work for a different domain. It works. It's kind of cool. It's kind of neat.
I think the HTTPS page needs a quick start.
Yeah. Let me make 2 notes about that so I would remember to do it later.
Yes, you guys use the free.
Let's Encrypt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I use that on most of my sites, but if you're okay using a service, Cloudflare has a free tier that also includes SSL, and
So they host your content and SSL?
so they actually just proxy to
Did
your
you get the
content.
invitation from Slack?
Yeah, and what you can do is
Say hi in the channel when you get on there.
I guess you kind of have to do this, but you move your DNS to Cloudflare. So they become your name server provider, your DNS host, and then they like pretty much handle the rest of it. And so you, then they have, I think they have a quick start page somewhere that says like how to point at a GitHub page. And
I use DNS symbols. So I already have something that's DNS.
Nice. Yeah, I'm not sure how or if it's possible to have Cloudflare like serve a domain without them being in control of the DNS. It seems like they should be, but if for a given domain, yeah, if you already have hosting, Let's Encrypt is great. It's super good. The thing I love about Cloudflare is that essentially like in an hour, you can have someone up with like a GitHub page with HTTPS, and other than sitting around twiddling their thumbs waiting for DNS to update, then they've got a site and they can edit it with GitHub pages. So it's like a real CMS. I don't know. It's neat.
So what do you, when you do static sites, if you didn't want to use GitHub, if you wanted to use Jekyll, what do you guys recommend?
I would say it depends on what you're comfortable with and the parts of it that you're excited about. So if you're really into like doing all of your own HTML and CSS design, then pretty much any one of them will do. But if you're like, I really just want to pick a template and get started, that's actually where I would figure out first. Beyond that, something like, you know, what programming languages are you comfortable with, if any, then like kind of use that to guide yourself to the next one. Jekyll's super popular and has a big community. And if you know Ruby, it's great. If you are willing to learn Ruby, it's great. If you don't know it, then it can be a lot. Yeah, I've used Pelican for Python, and I like that okay. It's especially pretty easy to do something, like it's very geared toward blogs. So it's really easy to quick start out a Pelican page, and they have some amount of templates. Like it's a smaller community, but they do have some stuff there. They're not the only ones. There's a list of static site generators. Where is it? Let's just ask Google. Someone has a collection that's like almost leaderboard. Oh, staticgen.com.
Oh, okay.
And this has a breakdown. I think this is all pulled off of GitHub. So it's based on like GitHub forks and stars.
Oh, I see.
And then they tell you like what the main language is. Looks like Pelican is the top for Python. MKDocs. Yeah, there are a ton.
All right, I've got more photos to upload, but it's time for the next session, right?
Yeah, and I think it's WordPress.
Is WordPress in here?
What's in the other?
The other one is web mention.
Web mentions. Web mentions.
Yeah, we were for 2 days. Yeah, we're at
Web mentions.
IndieWeb.org. Should all be on there. Yeah. Yeah, I'm at topic.com.
Excuse me.
This is WordPress. Oh, this is it. I see. Webbench is over there. So,
WordPress.
they even know that they went open.
I'm open. Depending on the link. You'll have the Facebook.
Marathon run? Very cool. What else is going on? This is just the next 2 days. If you want to follow the whole thing to join our online chat, is at IndieWeb.org. Yeah, you're welcome to come by there anytime to follow up on what we got done, check out the sessions, or the chat. Yeah, so IndieWeb.org. There's links to more information there. Yeah. What's that? Thank you. But yeah, if we can help you to get started on your own site, what can we provide? By tomorrow, I'll be here tomorrow. All right, next session here is WordPress intro by Tom Brown, who's not here.
He's down there, he should be back.
Should we go yawn?
Yeah.
All right.
Yes, I can.
That's actually like the right answer.
Yeah, we have 2 months.
I didn't know, is there a water fountain? Is there? Do you know if there's a water fountain?
Yeah. Really? I believe so, but I think it's supposed to be.
By the restroom? Okay.
Yeah, it's like 2 rooms.
I heard you talking about the building earlier. I assume you're an expert.
Just a guy who's beat if you don't.
Makes you an expert.
Excellent, yeah.
I mean, they're fine.
Cool. Yeah, help yourself if you want. Snack is
Scanning. Continue setup.
Yeah, they're still going micropub?
It's going.
Okay.
We'll put stops to
The
that.
joys of the camp format.
Yes. Oh, no, I was at the habit of collecting my head by feel much more together than I know. So I feel much more together when I know where the things that I brought are. Because oftentimes it'll be nice enough outside. I don't realize there were things in my jacket that I left there but I wish I hadn't left.
3 days later, you're looking for that adapter. No, the other day I was actually, I went to a training session and I took my AC adapter with me. And I remember putting it back in my bag. And then 3 days, like a week later, I was like, where is that charger? Where's that charger? And it was in a pocket in my backpack that I never put stuff in. So I wouldn't have put it. It was like in the back pocket where I put your laptop. For some reason, the charger is there too. And I'm like, I would never think to look at and look at the front pocket. It was like, and I actually called down there, like, hey, can you turn the charger?
You can move there on because that's where all my charts. No, only because I plugged everything in there. Otherwise, I'd move. It would just and then back it here. And I'll be in this room for the next few sessions.
Yes, yeah.
Sorry, we're in the midst of my discussions next door.
Yeah, you guys went over. Wait,
I wasn't, yeah. I was not the one time moving. Our facilitator was facilitating. He's on the clock. He under or over facilitated, depending on your perspective. So what do we have next in here?
WordPress.
Who's facilitating that?
I can start it out, but I imagine I'll need a lot of help from you. Okay, I'm sure. Excellent.
I'm going to be moving in a moment, so
Okay.
feel free to get in and out. But
So what is the hashtag for this one?
The hashtag for this session is WordPress.
Just WordPress?
Yes.
How original.
So that's etherpad.indieweb.org/WordPress. And let's see what we have here. Session name, WordPress intro. And these you can fill in as needed. Page 2017 to 12-9 13 57. I'll just say 1400 hours. Central Standard Time.
Right. Tom, you're going to lead us.
Yes. Okay. At least for the intro to the intro.
the ATUF.
Ready to roll?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were waiting.
No, that's it.
Yes, that's my bad.
Are we streaming?
Yeah.
All right.
That's the operator question.
I'm just closing the door because of the continual draft.
Okay. I don't plan to. I have, my intention is to get others to show off their WordPress installations. Yes.
Can someone project on the Chromecast then? Yeah, do it. If you can talk to the Chromecast, are you able to? Or the,
What's the name of the program?
or the, let's see, Wally, or the AirPlay.
I don't have airplane.
Oh, yeah, I don't.
Yeah,
John, would you like to? Oh, perfect. Yeah, that would be great.
Awesome, thanks guys.
Okay, I facilitated a session at Internet Identity Workshop in October, and I just, it was like an open IndieWeb type of session, and it turned out to be, let's install WordPress. And what I found out is I wasn't very good at getting some of the basic IndieWeb features working. I was surprised because I'd done it before, but I just kind of choked. So I ended up on the IRC channel and getting some help from David, and so we finally got going. And then similarly, I was helping John in the last week or so with starting up IndieWeb, and I found myself in the same situation. I was trying to help somebody, but I wasn't very effective at that. So kind of a couple of things was I wasn't very good at sending web mentions from WordPress, and I wasn't very good at sending an RSVP and getting the H card photo to display in the face pile. So I'm kind of curious what would we like to kind of cover in this session? Because I'm going to basically try to get some help from David to help get some guidance about how to fix the stuff I broke, and then I'd like to gather some more kind of suggestions for things we can pester David with. does anybody want to go through an installation or maybe some just kind of run through of the plugins, or does anybody have any ideas? Yes.
IndieWeb on the left hand side.
Right down here.
Oh, in the sidebar.
And getting started is the first. That might be the place to start.
Okay.
What it- the user. Most computers has control and plus. There. So there are some starter steps if you're trying to start out. This is the IndieWeb plugin, which is basically the starting point for most people. So the first one is complete your user profile. So on a WordPress site, that would be under the users and then your profile, your login. And then your profile. So if you scroll down, you'll see there are a lot of different options here. Some of which were there before you installed the plugin, and some of which were not. I don't think I'm responsible for naming out what I am or covering. That's probably something else. But you have your little plus ID or your Facebook ID, last one. Instagram, Twitter, AGPT, that one. Diagram, info, pretty simple there. Go in, there's the password. Okay. Authorial info, that one. I'm sure you put that in. Which plugin? Because you see this another Twitter profile. So the problem is that a lot of plugins ask for Facebook and Twitter, so then of course your street address you choose to put in front of it, or at least your city village, region or something.
David, can I make a pull request to this? Can you scroll back up? Yeah. Fill in all fields you are wish displayed.
That's it.
Is that in the IndieWeb program?
Look,
I'll open an issue.
yeah, please do. I can check, because my development environment is on this computer. If it is in there, what would the issue now? Notice no one actually has said anything. It's in there. Yeah, that is in there. And by the way, any pull request to the IndieWeb plugin requires it being signed off on at least 2 people.
Okay.
None of which noticed the typo. Okay. But either way, I'll fix that as soon as somebody proves it. But basically, you can fill in everything. There's other sites there on the theory that you can't cover every single possible site somebody might want to post on their site or connect to. So there's a box for everything that doesn't have its own box. So once you fill that out, if you go back to the getting started, then you're looking at you can close this. There's a previous tab, you know. Yeah. So the next one is under the IndieWeb menu in the sidebar, which is scroll down here. Yeah. There's one for options. Can you do that? So here it is. Is this a single author site? You may notice it is. There's only one user. So it's blacked out because only one user has made a post. So, and the default remains that one user. If there are multiple users, you have the choice. Is this a multi-user site or is this one author? And the final one is, do you want to use your website URL instead of what usually happens on the WordPress site, which is your author archive, which is a list of all the posts done in that archive. So you'll use whatever the website URL is in your profile instead. So if you don't want it to be site/author/ whatever username you're having, that box would change it over to whatever is the website URL. So for example, on mine, instead of using /author/ it would just give me david.shansky.com as my author URL anytime it's asked for by owner.
Yeah, it was checked back in 12. I wonder if this should be checked or unchecked.
Well, the assumption is that on a single author site, your entire site is your archive. So you don't need the author archive pages in WordPress. So this overrides the default, but if you're a single site, it makes sense. But you want to show it. You never want to show that archive page because the entire site is the archive page. It's basically necessary. So next would be to look at the various extensions you can install. So if you go back to that Kickstarter page, that actually is the next step, which is extensions. So this is a list of IndieWeb recommended plugins. We have web mention, so that enables web mention on your sites, and then we have semantic linkbacks. Semantic linkbacks basically makes web mentions look good. That is the simplest way of describing it. Now, there has continually been talk that should just be part of web mention. It's a plugin. It's not a debate. It's talking to the author. As you can see, the same author is listed as possible. Then, of course, we have the micropub plugin. If you want to be able to host your site using micropub, there's a plugin for that. It currently has actually no settings.
Nice.
Yeah. There's a proposal for those. So that covers, again, things that if you did nothing would work out of the box. If you want to look at the settings for web mention or semantic linkbacks, they're under settings/discussion. They don't have their own page. So if you go to settings and discussion, it shows you what the settings are. I'm also told I'm hard to hear. So if you want to come closer to the microphone.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Might
that's
as
there.
well.
I'll take the floor.
Excellent, thank you.
So if you scroll down on this page, sort of hidden, keep going. Yeah, past that. Okay. Keep going, semantic linkback settings and web mention settings. So we're going to look at the web mention settings, first of all. And we have a few. We're also going to look at the top of the page where there are some general WordPress settings that occur. So it's disable self pings on the same URL. So if you link to your own page, on that page, do you want to actually create a web mention? By default, no. Most people don't. Whereas by default, most people want, if they link to another page on their own site, to link to it. So these are what we expect most people to want. Then you have, do you want pages? Since pages are a different thing than posts in WordPress, do you want web mention support for pages? And of course, do you want to show a web mention form on your comment thing so that somebody could go and put in a link and basically post the web mention themselves? And if somebody mentions the home page, what page do you want to divert it to? So pages like your basically top level root page do not actually have comments. So where would you want any comments for your main page to be directed? So you can put it into, a lot of people put it into their about page. So for example, there's somebody in the room over here who keeps tagging my page, david.chansky.com, and any of those tags go into my about page, since there's no way to do it on the main page. Now if you scroll up a little, these are the semantic linkback settings, which were just recently added. These were actually added on Monday. So that's new there. So here it is, automatically embed face files. So if your theme supports IndieWeb philosophies, of which very few do, then some of these things might be built into your theme. But if not, the plugin tries to present some nice face files, which is basically all of the reposts, likes, and again, your choice, can be sorted with little pictures and a little icon next to it, instead of appearing like traditional comments. Now, I'm not sure if you have a page that has anything that we can see, but we could probably dig one up. So if you scroll all the way up to the top, there. Default article settings here. So at the moment, in order for you to get web mentions and to send web mentions, the first two settings actually have to be enabled. Even though those settings were originally designed for pingbacks and trackbacks, it currently honors them, which has led to some confusion for people who want to turn off those two features, who don't want pingbacks and trackbacks, so there's talk of splitting it. But for now, yeah, for now, it will not actually send web mentions unless that feature is enabled. There is a proposal to actually allow you to disable pingbacks and trackbacks individually, but that's a WordPress core problem. So you can disable web mentions separately because it's an add-on service, but there's no way to individually enable one with the other. So as of now, they have to be on. So that brings us back to, if you go back to the list of extensions, you had it up earlier, down here and then there. So that covers these three. As I said, there are no settings for MicroPlug today. There's talk of some because no settings means nobody knows what to do with it, which leaves them. So we have a few more plugins here. Some are more self-explanatory than others, so I'm going to skip a little and basically mention syndication links and Bridgie Publish first. So Bridgie itself is a service that Ryan Barrett created. He's also the creator of the MicroPub plugin that pulls information back from various networks, and it has a publishing component. So the Bridgie Publish plugin, all it does is provide an interface to his service. So if you look under here, there's a Bridgie option. And basically you have, do you want to enable publishing to the service? It doesn't actually do any publishing, it just creates the option that links to his service. And if you scroll down to the very bottom, these are all the options that service allows. And finally at the bottom, if you want to register for Bridgie, you click a link and it will automatically redirect you to the correct page. And then send you back when you're done. So you don't have to go to Bridgie unless you want to, it'll send you through the entire process. So you could register for all of these services Bridgie provides. Now, if you scroll up a bit, if you decide you want to do those services, you have a few options. These are the ones that publishing are enabled for. You can enable publishing. You can check it by default, which means anytime you do a post, it will automatically send to that service whether you want it to or not. Or, of course, you can make it so the option is never seen at all. And that just appears as a box in every post that you can check. But all it does. Then we get to syndication links, which has its own setting page if you go all the way back down to here. There. By the way, if you didn't install the IndieWeb plugin, all those settings still appear. They just don't appear under there. So syndication links adds links to sites that you basically syndicated to. That's all it does, very simple. So it adds a little link to your site, and you saw it when on Aaron's site, even though he's not using this plugin because he's not running WordPress, where there's a little Twitter icon or a little Facebook icon or what have you that links to that version of your post. So there are some basic options here. We have icons only. Do you want to display text only? Do you want icons and text? Or do you want the links to be completely hidden and only consumable by a computer? Do you want them to be small, medium, or large? Your choice. Do you want black and white only? Do you want to show those on the front page, archive pages, and search results, or just on the single post? Do you want to show on your feed, if you have an RSS feed? And if you have text before the links, what do you want it to say? Now, how do you actually get those links in there? You have two choices. In your post interface, there's a box. You can manually type them in. Or if you use a supported plugin, it will automatically paste it into that box for you. So right now, supported plugins would be, of course, Bridgie Publish, the one that pulls it from Bridgie. The Medium plugin actually is supported. And let's see, a few cross posters for Diaspora and a few other things that somebody implemented. And let's see, the Social Networks Auto Poster, which is a very popular one. I think there are about 3 requests to add more. And anybody can, because it's actually surprisingly simple just to update a field. So that pretty much covers syndication links. It's as simple as it can be made. And that gets to, I think the last one on that list was post kinds. This one here. You're lucky you just updated it so you get to see something I did while I was sitting here at lunchtime. So I just changed all the icons. So post kinds basically is a replacement for a WordPress feature, post formats. So post formats basically was each post could have a format. Kinds basically re-implements that with the IndieWeb types of posts. The only reason they're not called post types is, again, post types means something in WordPress, so can't call it that. So you can enable whichever ones you want. By default, it only gives you a few. But if you decide you want to check them all, you can. If you decide you don't want to check any of them, I believe the minimum that you could check is 1 note. So if it will not let you unselect all of them. Because if you unselect all of them, you might as well just disable the whole thing. So you have things like article, audio, bookmark, check-in, favorite. By the way, I do not use them all, despite the fact I added them all in. If anybody had one that they wanted, I would just keep adding them until the end of time for someone who's using them. So the most common ones you'll see, article, which is a traditional blog post. You have bookmark, check-in. Down here you have reply, RSVP. And again, you have other ones. Somebody said that they wanted quote, so it's there. And then, of course, your default for new posts. And if you keep going, we have an embed sites into your response. WordPress has embedding for a variety of things, like it will embed Twitter, it will embed YouTube. If you click that, it'll give you the WordPress embedding function. If you don't click it, then it'll use My Display, the one from the plugin itself. And finally, before it, do you want to display an icon before every one? So you can see the icons up here. Do you want to display that little symbol? Do you want to display a textual version, such as watched or RSVP to or video, or do you want to display nothing? What is missing, and I probably should put it there, is display both an icon and text. I actually, when I added that feature, I think I forgot both. You want to write that? You were doing issues. Could you add that one just to remind me?
Yes, can you remember what it is?
IndieWeb post kinds. It's display before kind, add both.
Oh, both is
Yeah,
missing.
both is not an option. Nothing text and icon is. So could you create a post? Just a new one? We don't have to actually post it. We'll just pretend to. By the way, all of these plugins by themselves are technically optional. If you don't want to use post kinds, you can mark up your own stuff. The idea was that if you didn't want to do all the markup, it would try to do it for you. So here we are. Now there are a lot of different plugins installed, so we'll skip past custom fields. We'll keep going, slug. So here's location. I'm guessing you installed simple location. Also, simple location is simple enough. Could you click there? Just that icon right there. Okay, you're running Chrome, I'm guessing. Yeah. Okay. Chrome has this annoying thing that it will not let you do HTML5 geolocation, basically location in your browser, unless your site is HTTPS. Go figure. I don't know how to get around that. But otherwise, you could always do the more traditional, put your longitude and latitude into those boxes. But we'll leave that aside for now. You could also just name your location if you wanted to, the old-fashioned way. Here's the manual syndication links box. So basically, if you don't have automatic posting to other things and you manually copy everything there, you can just stick it in the box and it will display. And here's the one for post kinds. So if you create a post kind, and can you scroll up one more time? I did miss something. Sidebar. Just keep, what did I just unplug? I don't know, but no, that's an HDMI cord. So if you keep going over here, sorry, no, there. There's a list of all of your choices. By default, yours is article. So if you look, you can select what type it is. So we're going to pretend that we're doing, let's say, a bookmark. Fairly common. So if you go back down to that post properties box, and by the way, you can rearrange the boxes. That's one of the lovely things about WordPress. We need a URL to bookmark. Would you happen to have one? Anything that you don't have to publish the post. We can save it as a draft and delete it later. But we need a complete article if you have one. Yeah, you might have one in one of those many tabs that are open.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just rather than a page that has multiple things on it, I need one that just has one thing on it. So any article from anybody. Yeah. So if you paste it into that box that we were just looking at. There we go. And just hit retrieve. Yeah. Just hit OK. Let's see if it found anything. It did. Good. It is not always successful. That does depend on the other site. You can see there is one for name, some form of summary. If you do have categories or tags marked up, if you switch, you can just tab through there to details. So here, it was able to find a site name. It was able to find a published date and an updated date, which are the same in this case. If you go to author, it was not able to find any author information. It uses about 5 different things to try to find it. If you don't have any of those things, you could always fill it in yourself. And then there's, of course, other. Other is, again, there's the RSVP property. We have a start time and an end time for duration if it's as needed. And eventually, if I keep adding things, there are going to be a lot more tabs there. So I have a problem. So if you posted that now, it would give you a bookmark with a preview of that people could look at. Would you, since we don't necessarily want to publish this on your site unless you don't care, can you just go up and hit the preview button? There's one up, yeah, right there, preview. Should preview it. So there's the presentation. Now, if you put something into the traditional content box, it would appear below. So this is all dynamically added in at the top. Your theme can do that for you, but at the moment it's just merged in. So you get a nice little presentation, and it is readable by most parsers. Also, it is stylable, so if you do have a theme, you could actually dictate what this looks like. Your theme can override my presentation, but tries to be as generic as possible. So I think that covers everything. That covers simple location, which does location. We only briefly did that. If you want to see what location looks like by itself, you can go to my site for a moment. You can go to my site for a moment. Can you pull david.chansky.com? So while I was away a few weeks ago, I was basically checking in using Swarm and Aaron Parecki's Own Your Swarm to get a lot of location posts to try to improve that. So if you scroll down, we'll get something a little more interesting. So just click on this right here, just so we can see the single post. So if you look, there's a map of where I was. And over here, this particular theme has the location embedded on the side. But if your theme didn't support that, because most themes don't, except ones that it would appear down here at the bottom. So hopefully that covered everything that's currently available. There is, of course, IndieAuth, which right now the IndieAuth plugin, all it does is allow you to log into your own website using IndieAuth, using Aaron Parecki's server. So that should cover everything, I think. Someone is coming. Does that mean we're out of time?
Kirk with Capital Factory. I was coming to get this down.
Yeah.
Minutes. Thank you. Sorry
Okay.
to interrupt.
So there's a lot of, yeah, there is one other feature that's actually part of simple location that nobody really notices. Can you scroll back up? As part of simple location, this appears, time zone, mostly because it was annoying me. WordPress does not allow you to set time zone by post, and then once you put in location, actually what time it actually was where you were located becomes important. So if you hit edit there, so you can see it has the traditional list of cities, and if you actually set location, it will automatically figure out what time zone you're in and try to convert it. That's a standard WordPress list. But there is one more feature that is in the README, but nobody has ever noticed because I put it in and never told anyone. Can you scroll? Yeah, if you want to click over here and get out of the box and then click back in and see if we can. Yeah, I think you're still stuck in the list of every time zone known to man. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. I did not realize how that would render on some computers, but so yeah. So there's actually a thing where if you actually click the little clock, it'll use whatever time zone your browser is set to automatically override it. No matter what your website says. I built that again because I was somewhere and everything was messed up. So all of my posts were coming in Eastern time zone, even though the time that was being reported was actually GMT +1. So I have a button that can basically, if location doesn't work, I can click a button to automatically override the time zone based on whatever my browser thinks it is. Now that'll display on the front end. If you deliberately change that to, let's say, Addis Ababa, just because it's on the main screen. Yeah. I don't know what's going on there, but I think you still have to go to the bottom and hit OK. Yeah, didn't quite work there. Somehow, I don't know why it's showing as a. That is interesting. I've never seen that before, and I tried 3 different browsers to make sure that worked. Then again, it's a Mac. I didn't test Macs. I'm gonna have to ask somebody with a Mac to figure that one out.
There it is. Hit cancel.
Yeah, you can do a cancel here, and that'll get rid of it. But it doesn't seem to let you select that. But I'm not sure why. Yeah, that one there, edit details, is the Publicize plugin. So it's a different. I would love to support the Publicize plugin and syndication links, but unfortunately, that is not possible. There's an open issue. Yeah, it's not letting you select it, which is odd. Because it works, and again, I checked Chrome and Firefox, but not on a Macintosh, so there must be something going on. I need a Mac user to help me figure out why. Because the list in question is coming directly out of WordPress. I'm just outputting it. Anyway, let's pretend that feature was working. I'm going to have to figure out why. So if you did that, it would display on the thing. But if you go,
It was because I had selected this one, and it won't let me unselect it.
yeah, no, I'm honestly not sure.
That may
No,
be
I'm
the bug. The bug may be that you can't unselect the time zone, which is like.
Every test I did, no, I'm saying every test I did it, but I was using it on a different operating system, so there must be something.
Go into it.
You can try. If not, if you look at my website, I have a few that show different time zones. If you want to see that it shows on the front end. But you learn new things when you have. I know there are services that will test your stuff against every single type of computer. Unfortunately, I don't know if it would test whether or not a box rendered correctly. Yeah, that's the thing. You can test rendering, but not.
Well,
Hope I didn't crash your site.
yeah.
Just backing up there. Yeah, so you just updated the draft, so try it now. The time zone thing you're seeing is showing as empty. That's interesting. Did you ever, I'm guessing you might not have set the default time zone on your computer to begin with. Yeah. You see what I mean? Yeah, I've never seen that before in any other version, and nobody else reported it, which is. So I'm not sure. Maybe it's a Mac issue. Well, I'm sure somebody using this thing has a Mac. But also, I don't think you necessarily have a default time zone set. Can you check something? Settings over here. There. And general. You might still be set to Greenwich Mean. Oh, just scroll down. Yeah, you're set at UTC -5. So that technically is correct. But for some reason it wasn't picking it up. Maybe because it's not a standard time zone string. That I definitely am going to try to fix. The UTC thing, that's probably my fault. But I'm not sure about the other one because it should let you select stuff on the list. But anyway, any questions? I think I covered everything I can think of.
Good.
Well, every time there's a new version, it gets better. And the idea is anybody who has any ideas.
Can you tell us any secrets that are coming?
Other than that browser time zone thing, that was the last one that I didn't think anybody noticed. Although I continue to find things that are actually in the documentation that nobody noticed were there, which there are a few of them. And
So let's say I want this one, I think it's a person where I can try to see the leverage.
yeah, right there.
Okay, so I've got a page. It's set up for, it's an RSVP for. The web that you really changed the layout of my
That I'm not sure why. So that's, so this is the RSVP.
Okay, so let's see. When I do this, you click send mention.
Interesting.
And
Can you back up for a moment?
that's a server.
Yeah. In order to figure out why, because that, if there's something going on that's being triggered by the Web Mentions plugin, it's something we'd want to figure out if we missed something. But let me ask you a question. Can you put that same thing in here? Yeah. The first question is it readable at all? Okay. So far it's readable. You have an author. You have a reply to. You have the whole thing. You have a publish date.
It doesn't see the photo.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, that's why.
Yeah, a lot of times you'd have to mark up the avatar with view photo, and that's a whole other. That's why it's, you notice it doesn't see any of these categories, and the reason basically why is that the theme doesn't quite support them. There are a few that do and a few that don't.
What theme are you using, John?
I'm using independent publisher.
Yeah, it should.
You're using the same one?
Yeah.
Now, independent publisher has some micro formats, but admittedly, not 100%. I have a pull request over to the developer, but he had some concerns, and he didn't answer the question of whether or not he wanted me to address them or if he was just going to address them himself.
Is there a WordPress thing that you guys better support?
Right now, it depends. The reason why is the one that provides complete micro format support would be SemPress.
Which one?
SemPress.
SemPress.
Yeah, there's also the same developer did ZenPress, and has two of them. But neither of them necessarily have support for every single plugin. Some of the reason being that, regrettably, because I didn't, Matthias, who did both of those, doesn't use most of the plugins that I mentioned. He prefers to mark up things manually.
SemPress right there.
Yeah, that's the one, SemPress.
SemPress.
Yeah. So that one, admittedly, that supports all of the markup, but it doesn't have native, for example, post guide support, which somebody asked for, but I didn't have to go in and do it because he doesn't use the plugin and it's not a priority for him. So there it is. And he's switching over to ZenPress, which is his new one, and that one is not in the WordPress repository, it's only in development. Then there's my fork of independent publisher, and my fork of 2016, which both support all that stuff. But
I have that question.
Yeah.
Shouldn't the web mentions be sent automatically when you publish the post?
it should.
There should nothing.
But the question is trying to figure out why that page didn't go as what. So there's some troubleshooting I'd like to do and see. Right now, there's actually no way inside WordPress to actually see the log from the system of why it might have failed. Now, there is a hook that would allow you to do that, but there's no interface for it. So it was sort of the compromise. Nobody wanted to build a logging system, so we just made it so anybody could build one, but didn't actually build it. So SemPress has its pros and cons. Visually, it's consistent, but not my preference.
What you can do is you can try the RSVP and then switch back to your original thing once you get that.
But even if you look at the page for IndieWebCamp Austin 2017, there's a web mention form buried in that page where you can put your link. So the question is it just that one site, or is the 500 coming from? You see, it says it's an HTTP error 500 coming from IndieWebify. The question is it an IndieWebify problem, or is it a?
Yeah, it is a problem that it's not giving you better error message.
Yeah, but I'm saying is the 500. A 500 is
That's a server error.
Yeah, which is an IndieWebify error.
Yeah, that means, something went wrong and it didn't even catch the problem.
Yeah, so the thing is, it's not necessarily the WordPress site, it might be the IndieWebify site that's malfunctioning. But you want that to appear on the 2017? You want that to, can you go back to the actual RSVP? I think you have it open somewhere. So, yeah, if you could just open up the link to your RSVP. Yeah. So you want this to appear on another page. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, by the way, if you're using the SimPress, the Microformats 2 plugin has to be disabled, or you end up seeing, can you scroll down a little? No, other way, sorry. Up, but this happens. That only happens if you have a Microformats enabled theme and the Microformat shim, which is basically the thing that tries to put something into a theme that doesn't recognize it. So that messes up things if it's used in any theme that actually does use Microformats. But anyway, so if you have that page.
I think we did get my RSVP to work. It wasn't picking up an image, but I think we know that line was.
Yeah, because it wasn't recognizing one.
So I think I'm okay there.
But there is opportunities, as you can see, there's a lot of opportunities to make this a lot easier. The thing is, we started out with everybody building pieces. The pieces are starting to come together, but there's still some work. So I know we're coming on the end of this particular session in a minute or two. So is there anything I can do to? By the way, if you want me to add anything to any of the plugins that are under my control, or same thing with any of the other people in the community, if you make the suggestion. Now, again, that's being realistic. If it's going to take us 30 or 40 days to do something and we really don't care about it ourselves, we probably won't. But if it would take us an hour, we probably would. Yeah. So that's basically the gist of it. I'll do anything if it will not take me days to implement, and I'm not myself interested. But if it's quick, it's yours.
What's really interesting about this is in the midst of this, the layout, I think layout changed.
That I'm not sure why.
How that happened.
No, I'm honestly not
Oh,
sure.
I didn't know how it happened. I can see that. Because that's avoid my side a lot.
So when you change themes, it did probably change a few other things.
Well, what is this? Minutes. Okay, that's okay. That's that, what, that passed? Or 9 minutes ago? Yeah, right. We pushed it back 15. Well, that'll give me enough time to use it. I have to make a different sort of payment. Thanks, guys. I'll be around tomorrow if anybody needs anyone. I will gladly stop anything that I might. What are you?
This is a mess. The sidebar.
Oh,
And,
yeah, if anybody needs it. I know we eat up a different one for tomorrow. I think, yes, I think they only work for tomorrow. So
I guess I can.
probably an other fancy was that what it is.
Oh, no,
that's right. Yeah, they'll probably make the theme back out somewhere.
Stop getting.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Suddenly,
I keep waiting for the day that I found out that Aaron is tracking his trips and that.
Oh, right.
No, he's tracking everything.
Yeah. Surprising, yes.
How did we, he might have just.
Right.
The exact same thing. I was thinking about my son for Arizona.
I made a issues for that. I think.
Here's work. The thing is, I use the code for all the other boxes. That's work basically is WordPress code. So I thought they would have tested it. Because I wanted it to look exactly like the things on top of it.
Right.
So you have to possibly.
This happened before.
But I can show you these in the types of future. Not this type of thing.
Yeah, it's like, it's after you preview that.
And then another you should go.
Use the rest of it.
Yeah. WordPress uses non-standard strings.
What do you mean by a non-standard string?
Well, you know how a time zone string is America slash New York or America slash. They have non-trivial UTC minus one, which is not standard. I'm guessing might go different method of whether that could be used. But this is the same thing here. This is my test site right here. But if you look there, if I hit the edit button, I don't get a list like he was. I'm getting what I'm supposed to, which is pull that box.
Right. That's what I expected to see. Hold on.
Yeah, that's what it is. And that same other feature, here's the time zone feature. It's up in Chicago, time zone feature here.
That is so, like, the only thing that you want. It kind of kills me that there's no workings for it. Like, there's just no hint that is just how it works.
As I said, I sort of made it as an feature. At some point, I had to figure out how to make it obvious without cluttering it because it's markings, right? Admittedly, my JavaScript skills are somewhat limited. It's not a language I know very well, right? Just because it extends to what I'm supposed to do. But even though I don't think I'm going to go papers on my side, I'm interested in that conversation.
Possibly that one. So, go. Okay, see you later. Have a great one. Bye.
I just need somebody with Mac to. Or if somebody has a Mac that works, I need to figure out why.
Why it works there.
It might be a plugin.
Already done.
It's like, oh, I didn't get the same thing. Let's figure this out. It's one of those plugins.
That's what I was wondering, because I can't think what returns what's usually a pull down box if you just throw a long list of these. Something's odd. So if you want to see what it looks like, oh, you fixed it?
That's what it was. It was zooming in.
Oh, was it Zoom? Wow. But I can show you what it would look like if it's working. I mean, you could have like this. Yeah.
I don't know exactly. Yeah.
But there is one other secret feature that I've never hit it, but most people do not know about. Yeah. The post-tax parser is available as a JSON. I use it for debugging purposes. So if you go to any site that has Postmax enabled, that has WordPress debug enabled, you can actually get a special screen.
Yeah.
Which is basically just a box with a URL.
Should we just do a session where you walk through all the undocumented features of all of it?
There you go.
I think the clock is documented. You can change a lot.
That is not.
If you read the code,
I will
technically.
go ahead and put a line in the sand that says that does not count.
This is deliberately not documented.
Right.
The debugger.
I don't know that. I think I've never been able to do WordPress sessions at the equipment. Like, I was shocked at how many things are in there and like super cool functionality, but also are followed by who should have done that.
Documentation needs a lot of work.
Yeah.
This thing, as I said, this is just what I use to make sure that retrieved URL works properly. Right. So this is an post to the site, broken down by one exact ag file. So, well, yeah, it's useful if you just want to see that. It's basically
All right. So
it's my own version of the 13. Yeah. Except it also not only parses microphones, it parses.
how are you able to project on here again? Who was projecting?
It's airplane.
So
Yeah.
you can airplay to Wally.
Maybe. A new enough Mac?
Yeah. do that.
And does AirPlay just mirror or?
You can do either. You can expand with your.
It's pledges and donations.
Whoa. Enter the code. Oh, hey, look at that. Okay, that's me trying to do photos. Look, we've got photos. Okay. Did Aaron leave? Okay, well, I'll just start. Yeah, payments. I don't remember exactly how we started brainstorming on this, but I think it's just like a lot of websites have tip jars or PayPal donate me links or things like that. And we realized this is all a good thing and we should come up with ways of making it better and easier for indie web creators to get paid by their fans. And that makes sense, right? So we kind of started this page brainstorming and then figured out that a lot of the like payment providers have ways of creative ways of building these quick links. And I think it started with Square, or was it PayPal.me? One of those did. Of like, oh yeah, here's an easy link to pay me using this particular payment silo, shall we say, right? And we're like, well, you really should be a page on your own site. So I think that's how it started. And then, have you all seen my contact page? So this works really well on mobile. It's designed for mobile. So like, I don't have a phone number or give out a phone number. I give out topic.com/contact and then they can text me or whatever from their phone. It just works, right? And if they're not connected to the web, then how can they
it's not connected to the internet or whatever, how can they actually contact me? So you're either on the network or not. If you're on the network, you can load a simple static HTML page, tap a button, takes you to the app. You don't have to actually type anything. Also, if I change my address on any of these systems, I just update one page, right? I don't have to tell my friends, new phone number, who dis? That's not a problem anymore. Like, why is that a problem? So just like that, similar to that. Okay. So this is a similar kind of UI idea, but I think the one that I was impressed with was Aaron's, where he's got, let's see. Did you not link to it? Oh no, there it is.
You say on your homepage. Oh, there it is. There are two spots because you have the feature on your page, and then you have a separate page.
Oh, I'm on the lobby. Is there like another code I can? Are these used codes or unused codes?
Those are unused. It should be fresh.
The Omni lobby is being abused. Someone's probably uploading a torrent or something. But then again, I can't see any other hotspots. Huh. This device went offline too. Capital Factory guest. Okay, well now it's back. But this one's not seeing capital. Okay.
Is that Stripe encrypted?
So I don't know if you can see that.
Different codes. Okay, actually, that's pretty. Low point.
So Aaron went a little bit further, actually put his like usernames on those systems as like a hint in case when you pull it up, you're like, wait, what was I doing? And then, is that actually a link? Wow. Blockchain.info/address. Okay. Cool. So he's got Square Cash. I need to add Square Cash. And then he's got this pay with card thing, which is Stripe integration. Okay. But I can also go like pay/10, right?
Question mark.
Okay.
The thing.
You didn't want to do it server side? Is that why?
Yeah.
Ah, okay. So I have a chance to one up you. Okay. He can give people links that just pay him $10. That's kind of cool. So if he's got like a donate thing, or like if like Aaron and I go out to dinner and the dinner costs $20, he can just send me a link to pay/10, and then I'm like tap, okay, tap. I don't need to even type it.
For example, buy a box of donuts and bring it back.
Oh yes.
I can send you a link
for the cost of that, right? So that's super convenient, and then I can wait a minute. How come I can't Venmo or?
I only have icons here that support pre-filled amounts.
Really? They don't support that?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is super weird. It's like that's what Venmo is for.
Yeah.
Why not just put the icon anyway and then to type it in again?
I'll think about it.
Okay. As you can see, this is in development by all of us. We're live experimenting.
So different designs. Another fun one. Click OK with card.
Okay.
Now look at the amount.
Oh.
Covered. Yeah. So I will end up with $10.
Is that the 30 cents plus 3%?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a lot going on here. This is super cool.
That's right.
Yeah, that one is Stripe. I mean, it's pay with credit card. You know, Stripe is a payment processor, not nothing accounts. So it is a pay by card feature that I haven't used on Stripe. Whereas the other one requires the account.
But one thing we haven't done, and we just started documenting, is this notion of a pledge, which it's a recurring donation. So the idea is someone saying, hey, I like the work you're doing. I want to give you like $1 for every blog post you write because I want to sponsor your blog posts. Or I'm just going to send you $1 a month because I like your site. Keep going. Whatever. Like, this is a thing people do. And we don't have a way to do this right now on the IndieWeb. Right? There's systems like Patreon that does this, that recently, like what, 2 days ago, updated their fee structure and got a lot of people really upset. So it's kind of very fresh in people's minds that people are saying, isn't there an alternative? Can we build an alternative? Can we build a nonprofit to do this instead, et cetera, et cetera? So I kind of feel like we're in the best possible position to just ship it. Like, rather than like tweeting about, you know, complaining about it, and just like, well, just ship something that works and point people out and be like, hey, here you go, do this. 1, 2, 3, you're done. And they, in particular, they made it so that, yeah, the description's here, but if you were micro pledging, just like giving people like $1 or $2, like the percentage of your pledge that would go to fees versus what the original content creator would get, that percentage overhead just went to the roof, like doubled or tripled, something crazy. I think he's got it here.
It's complicated. Depends on the amount.
Yeah, $1 pledge, that they only get 55% of the total payment. So it's like almost 50% overhead, which is crazy. That's insane.
That's not including VAT either.
That's not including what?
VAT for Europeans.
Oh, yeah.
I think that is. Oh, is that the one that said about you?
Oh, for Europeans, yeah, a new structure. So. Okay, so instead of Patreon, we've come to talk about pledging and come up with ways of doing that instead. And I think, Aaron, you wrote up the Stripe brainstorm?
I don't think I should write one yet.
Ah, okay. I thought you wrote it up. I thought I saw you.
Oh, I guess I have to link to their course.
Okay. So we haven't actually built this yet, but there's an idea that. Why is this network so slow? I can't see any other networks so well. This isn't real yet. There. So that's what this session's like, brainstorming, talking about. I wanted to put that out there as like different forms of payment, one time, open-ended, specific amount, pledging, recurring donations. You know, this is both useful for individual content creators, or if you have like an independent website, like a band, where people want to say, hey, I like your music. Like, thanks for all the free MP3s. Here's a few bucks. You know, I think that would be cool. Or you have like a political cause. There's lots of use cases I can think of where you'd want to give people the opportunity to, hey, I found your website and like, I don't want to get involved, but like, I like what you're doing. Here's some money. Keep doing good work. And that's kind of the goal here, is to come up with both the UI for this kind of thing, to try and build and prototype ways to do it, and then document all that so that we can give people solutions. And maybe David can build another WordPress plugin. So I mean, you could imagine there's like a WordPress plugin that's like, the use case is you want to get donations for your plugins because people think you're awesome and they want to just say thank you. And then you can use that to fund your IndieWeb trips.
Yeah. Actually, speaking of funding your motivated web,
I can use the money to fund trips.
There is IndieWeb as well. Like, theoretically, we could come up with something that replaces Open Collective.
Right. So we use here. I think it's here, right? Why am I doing that? Seriously. I know what it's doing. It's not letting me see other networks lest I be tempted to switch and disrupt my AirPlay connection, which I don't even understand. Wait a minute. We're not even on the same network, are we? I mean, this is Omni Lobby. How am I talking to? Is this going over the internet? Is that what's going on? Like,
That can be right. But it's working. So I mean, maybe they're all using the same number anyway. Yeah, the Wi-Fi, fast Wi-Fi is Capital Factory guest.
you think they're all somehow just hotspots that are mirroring the same switch?
A more complicated version of that, yes. Also, why is it so slow for you to get to the internet, but screen share is working great? Like this is like those idle animations are not janking. It's able to AirPlay. Yeah.
The seconds are ticking on the clock, right?
Yeah,
And the
it's
like.
AirPlaying quickly, but somehow the outside internet is slow.
Yeah. Wait. What? How is this?
I don't know how that's not a.
Oh, let me guess. Capital S.
No, I don't think that AirPlay is.
Oh, AirPlay's over Bluetooth?
Bluetooth doesn't have the bandwidth.
Because I think I've used it.
That's interesting.
That would make sense. But how can that be if we're on two different Wi-Fi networks?
There's probably just APs with multiple SSIDs, so you're on the same network. You can control the bandwidth per SSID.
Okay. Maybe the outgoing to the internet bandwidth, but not across
Now,
devices on the same.
you do have to
That's your
be
answer,
connected
Marty.
to the same level network, the same level network.
Yeah,
So they probably share the IP.
So Omni Lobby is probably like throttling us to the internet.
so you just need to disconnect from AirPlay, connect to Wi-Fi on the other one, and then reconnect to that.
Yep. Okay. That was weird. That's like one of those, like, I go down this UI path and I'm stuck kind of things. Aaron, that's the reason why you want to put the links to the other services. Don't be artificially limiting my options just because
Okay.
I wasn't actually trying to demonstrate that, but I'll take it. Did that work? Yes, looks like we're back. Okay. Yeah, so we have this Open Collective thing. You may have heard of Open Collective. A few folks, okay. So Aaron, you set this up, right, Aaron? For a while, we kept doing IndieWebCamps as like one-offs. So we get sponsors from IndieWebCamp, donate either like food or drinks or like some small dollar amount, and we'll spend it all on that IndieWebCamp. But that didn't give people a chance to say, but I just want to donate like $10 a month because you guys are awesome. So this Open Collective is a nice site that does that for us. And they simplified doing expenses too. Like we can do expense reports and get paid through them somehow.
The other thing that it does well is if local organizers of web camps have expenses for the event, they can submit receipts through it, and then it makes it very easy for first of all, everybody to see what's going on, and also
It's all transparent.
It's all transparent, and
Yeah.
then there's like a little pay button, like this, like reimburse from this fund through that mechanism. Whereas before, like you would have to like email me receipts.
Right. So if like Manson had like extra expenses for this, he could just submit to, they weren't covered by other donor sponsors, submit to Open Collective. it would send you a notification or whoever set it up?
It shows up in the list and it also sends me a notification.
Okay.
Yeah.
Latest
So
transactions.
some of the events, people, the local organizers handle like everything, like the Germany ones, and you handle everything here. And Germany, again, like they just handle it all, but some of the other ones, like don't have as many sponsors and need some general pool or things like that. So,
Like there's the one at the bottom from New York.
yeah.
Apple and strawberries.
And then the other thing this pays out is the like domain names for the community resources, which was not really being covered before.
You were personally sponsoring
I
it.
was personally sponsoring it
Yeah.
for a while because we're never happy to do that. But
It's just more transparent to the community. Like, hey, these are the stuff. This is how much it costs to do all this. So, I think this is kind of like on the far end of like what you could build on your own site. Because we definitely don't need each of us individually like this level of accounting. For a community, this makes sense. And if your website is like an independent, I don't know, like political cause or something like this could make sense as well. But if just for your personal site, I think something simpler like what you had. So Aaron, like imagine taking this UI, which is a one-time UI, and what if it was like you could say monthly, or you could say had an option to like every time you wrote a blog post, like an article, or every time you wrote an article about subject, X, like someone's saying, like every time he blogs about the IndieWeb, or he writes about the IndieWeb too much. Every time he blogs about bicycling, I don't know, or breakfast tacos or something, right? Someone could sponsor you. You could do all these different variants.
yeah.
What do people think? Is anyone interested in deploying something like this on their personal site?
I like the idea of David putting one up for supporting this development of video plugins.
Yeah, I agree. But I also think that's an opportunity for the kind of pledge recurring donation type UI, right? Where like people know it, David's like always doing this. So rather than do it that way, was it Patreon that started the whole like donors can pay you per thing you create?
I think that's the first time I saw that.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest things, as soon as you start accepting donations, you have to have UI capability to be able to cancel donations.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's true. Yeah, because I mean, we set this up pretty simple using Stripe on your site. It's just then you just have to figure out, like, do I just wait for them to email me and ask me to cancel, and I do it myself, right?
Yeah, and I think that's probably worth collecting because some places do this differently. Like, I've used sites that set up a recurring PayPal, and they have. Then from that site, I have no way to cancel it, and like I have to go into my PayPal, find my recurring section, and like fill it there, which is an option. I mean, obviously, people who real business decided that's okay, and so for a personal site. Maybe there's just a link that's like, are you paying me with recurring payments? Yeah. Click here to check whether you're doing that on PayPal.
But with Stripe, there's no way to do that because the end user doesn't have an account.
Oh, that's right. There's
Yeah.
no, so yeah, it has to be
managed by
right. Because it's got PayPal has a centralized thing, but
It's not Stripe, it's just a credit card process.
One kind of middle ground service between like your own thing and Stripe is Memberful, which most of our podcasters use. I use it for the podcast. And so one of the things they give you is that it's like, so like our podcast is support, which we support is .memberful.com. And my first thought was like, well, okay, fine, but where in the settings can I have members.core, right? And there's no way. And so like, if something comes out of this, I think they need to approach some of those services and say, you should, I I don't know what comes out of this, but like, you should support custom domains, you should support people.
Yeah.
I don't know, whatever standard, like, credentials come out of this, you should support.
That's a good point. So what is it, so what of, it's true that like, it's very unlikely that everybody's going to want to actually host their own payment processing for all the reasons you talked about, the whole life cycle of it. And these services are great because, yeah, like they handle and supporting up and they include other features. So what are, domain mapping is a excellent first step, but what other features are there that we should be asking of these to make them more IndieWeb friendly? And that big thing to brainstorm right now. Domain mapping, I think, is the first obvious one.
Sorry, when you say domain mapping,
So take a subdomain on your main domain and point it at memberful.
oh,
So memberful still hosts like the page that lets people donate so that they can manage their software and deal with it, which is a useful thing for these services to do. Imagine like
Is this it?
Patreon. That's it. Imagine Patreon doing it. Like you have a Patreon profile, but why couldn't that be donate.org? So domain mapping, I think, is a good one. You basically want to be able to port content in and out. So a lot of these services let you like write message to your members, like send messages to them. So I don't know, maybe like instead of requiring that you go in and write your content there, having it pull from a blog post, so you can just keep writing in your same interface. Like MailChimp lets you do this actually, how our newsletter sent out is I don't go into MailChimp and write the newsletter. I just use the RSS. Right? Yeah, I have an RSS feed, and then it just pulls from that and mails that out. But I actually haven't used too many platforms, so I'm curious, like as someone who has like what other things.
So
that would be
I mean, those two are great. Definitely any integration on those would be fantastic. They have a WordPress plugin, but so we've only been using this for a few months, so I'm not an expert in it. They have a WordPress plugin, which the primary purpose of WordPress plugin though is to automatically. So the purpose of a service like this is it sits between. So it handles. Even though Stripe can do recurring subscriptions fantastically, it handles like the user-facing profile element where I can sign in here, kind of stuff. And the WordPress plugin kind of syncs those users into WordPress users, which allows you to do fancy things on the WordPress site, like the person is a member. So that's fine. It's kind of WordPress specific. So any more like general integration.
Well, kind of. So I mean, like if I were to do something like that, I have WordPress, like I use WordPress plugin, but the feature that it's providing sounds like it's like membership and user management. So like if I wanted to have a post on my site that was visible only to people who contribute to this subscription membership, I need some way to get that list out. So is there a way that the service can make that easier? Is there like a standard we can come up with that would help other services be able to support that, or so that I could then like switch membership platforms easier?
So the thing about the switching membership platforms, the most recent example with Patreon is that people are finding that very hard. So right, they changed their model to be more friendly, and now these creators are feeling kind of stuck because you can either deal with being paid less, or you can deal with trying to move all your patrons to some other system, and in the process losing some percent.
This is the classic UX problem, right? The whole point is that I should be able to move my backend stuff and not lose my audience. So the equivalent for this would be, I should be able to swap out my payment processor and keep my members because my members were not locked into the payment processor.
But if your members log into the payment processor and not your site, they are locked in.
So, so for a WordPress plugin, do you have a migration path to move out of memberful to something else? Because like they're all WordPress users, right?
Right. I mean, I haven't looked at this, but my thinking is we had to do that. We we could move all the users over, but they would just be like usernames, like they would have no payment information associated.
Yeah.
Actually, that's not necessarily true because it goes through Stripe. I don't know, actually.
So you have email addresses in WordPress though, right?
Yeah.
So like at the very least, you haven't lost your whole audience.
Yeah. We
At
could
the very
email
least, you
them
can email them and say, hey, we're switching to this thing, please go into your credit card account. And again, some of them won't do that, but it's better than having to message everybody some other way and say, hey, no, go make an account here. Right? So I feel like that's a pretty good middle ground.
Yeah.
Ideally, like, yeah, you can keep your Stripe account. All the subscriptions are actually in that anyway. But I think the key is like the your members' identities shouldn't be tied to the payment processing. That's where the danger is, and that's what's happening in Patreon right now, is that all the members' identities are Patreon users. So if you leave Patreon, you also lose your entire audience.
Yeah.
And you can't move there also. So I think what you've got is definitely something in the right direction, since you at least have a path to recapture the audience.
Yeah, I think our services like this, it's a middle ground.
But even then, I feel like economists would have studies of it's some sort of like recurring payment model thing. If you ask the people to like opt in to doing it again, some percentage will fall off.
Absolutely, yeah.
So that's like a known loss. And therefore the payment processor can play on that and kind of like needle you down slowly over time and keep charging you more over time, because at each point in time, you're like, well, if I get people to switch now, I'll lose more than they're asking me. So you make the rational decision. And so the game theory there favors the payment processor, not you. Even if you were able to, even if you had all their contact information, even if all thing you asked for is like enter your credit card again.
I think that's why I think it's a good middle ground right now, but it's not that I guess.
Yeah.
So aside from having everybody build this themselves, is there an ideal solution that a service could support?
Well, you said Stripe, right?
So yeah, since your members are paying through your own Stripe account, I feel like there should be a way to be able to like keep those subscriptions active and just swap front ends, right?
I'm gonna see that. See, the thing is, I think because Memberful is handling recurring subscriptions, they don't show up as Stripe recurring customers. Like Stripe has a concept of recurring subscription. It's really great at for many things. It's also like that.
That's why Stripe took off, is my understanding, is they solved recurring.
Yeah, yeah. The great guys, great, and it's like that's why. But I'll dig in here and see if I can.
Okay.
See if you can get the information out, but.
I feel like, I don't know if we have, I don't know if Stripe can give out names. I think the most we do is so you still have time to match that up.
I know that you can attach like metadata to customer records, so the software can add other properties. So like you can put like WordPress user ID and store keys right along with the customer. But it depends on what the software does, right? But like if we had a list of things to request from a company like Memberful, like what would that list include?
So I just checked the Stripe account that we're using. It does create Stripe customers for every member, including their email address and name. But it doesn't create recurring subscriptions for those users. So Memberful is once a month doing a one-off charge for that customer. So the recurring part is Memberful, which kind of makes sense because I think they can support other packages just like Stripe. So it is actually better than I thought it was.
Yeah, because like if you lose Memberful, you still have all their card info on Stripe, and you can still charge
Yeah,
them.
actually, you're right.
Yeah.
Right, so
Like you don't have to recreate the recurring aspect, but you can still charge it.
right. Yeah. So domain names would be a nice thing. And there's probably some other indie web kind of
Domain
things.
seems like a no-brainer because like
Yeah, it would be super easy for them to
yeah, very easy to do.
support. But yeah, you're right. Like if we decide to move from this to home of solution here. Do that along with us.
So the other option that I want to show you all, because I don't think anyone here implements it yet. So Aaron's got this page, and in fact, I'll just go back to the previous version. You can kind of see how this would start to get a bit NASCAR-y, right? Does everyone understand that expression when I say NASCAR in this context? And while that can be good and bad, the other alternative, which is now in candidate recommendation, which is actually pretty sweet, is there's a standard payment request API done by the W3C via JavaScript, where a website can basically prompt the user to, or ask the browser to prompt the user for their payment method of choice. So in this case, the browser literally acts as the user's agent and does the keep holding of all the payment information for them, and then passes along whatever information that the website needs to just make the payment. So this is pretty sweet, the payment request API. I think that's another place for us to look at as maybe implementing like alongside this stuff. I don't know if Stripe implements it yet. They might. But if they did, the idea is you could just put that instead of this form and then fall back to Stripe.
This feels to me like Apple Pay for the web. Is that a correct analogy? Because with Apple Pay, now all of a sudden any iPhone app can request payment from me without me entering my card into the app.
Correct.
And it pops up the little iPhone system prompt, and I can choose which of my saved cards to use, and I can put confirmation, all that. It's super slick.
Yeah.
Websites go to.
You can do. I guess you can do it on websites too. Yeah, but it's their own Safari API.
Yeah.
Right.
So this seems like the open web API equivalent to that, where the card information is on the device.
Yep.
And where's the actual like payment? How's it happen? Is the end result of this like they get a credit card number, or is the real result of this like you get some token to some payment processor?
Let's take a look. So I think you can say what types you accept, for example.
Web page and show all the icons. After you decide, enter your information, then you decide.
If you guys read that. So there's some pretty good examples here, including like, this is for a lot more than just donations. Like if you're selling products and stuff, they can put in shipping options and stuff like that, like round shipping or drone express. Clearly they're forward thinking. But this is pretty slick, and I think there we go. It's already in the notes. Cool. The cool thing is this is already deployed and usable in browsers today by Edge and Chrome. In Safari, it's behind a flag, which means that you can test it yourself. Like you go to About Config, you turn on the support, and then you can see it working. Chrome for Android even. And the Safari Technical Plenary preview, which means it's probably coming real soon now for Safari. So,
That's impressive that Apple's supporting it. I assume it'll be integrated with Apple Pay.
Yeah, that's the idea. And the fact that they talked Apple into doing that is pretty sweet. So, Google provides a payment request wrapper for Apple Pay.js. So there's a polyfill where if you support the payment request API, and then you can include Google's library to just fall back to Apple Pay if that's what the user wants right now. So you don't have to add any Apple Pay specific code yourself or write any, which is pretty sweet. So I don't know, this looks like an interesting opportunity to try to hack something up tomorrow. Well, certainly, like if you go to my pay page, it's so simple. There, that's the entire source of the page. That's it. Like this is a standalone static page. I'll even zoom in. Yeah, I haven't written a blog post about it or whatever, but yeah, that's this. So at a minimum, everyone here should be able to set something like this up. Like, you can go to my page, copy the markup, change the, destinations. I was even lazy and hot linked to Aaron's icons, which I should fix.
He noticed at the time.
I was upfront about it. I'm like, FYI, I'm gonna hot link your payment icons because I just want to get this to work. I built this at the last IndieWebCamp, and then ended up using it like that night, like at dinner with people. So it was user tested immediately in the wild. But yeah, I feel like there's a spectrum of stuff that if people are interested in this, start with at least doing something like what I did on my website, all the way to, so Aaron, you've got like a lot more going on. Well, a lot of this is probably your boilerplate.
Yeah, lots of header.
Yeah. But this
I
is,
do have some JS in there for making the amount stuff.
and you've got like the blockchain stuff to work too, so, okay. Yeah. And then on the bleeding edge side, I think it'd be cool to try and get payment requests to work too on our own sites.
I just checked, and Stripe supports the payment request API.
So you could replace your Stripe with this.
So their docs say that right now they recommend for the best customer experience to first query to see if there are saved payment methods. If there are not, use a traditional flow. And if there are saved payment methods, then prompt for them.
Okay. With request payment?
Yeah. That makes sense. But I don't know how to add a card to my Chrome. How do I add a credit card?
What does that UI look like? Yeah, that's great.
I think you would have to try that without checking for saved methods, like do request payment and follow that flow.
Like, does the site have to make the UI to add credit cards? That seems a little bit.
No, I think Chrome does that for you, or the browser does that for you. Yeah.
Okay.
But you have to like trigger the API for the first time.
Okay.
Right.
Which is interesting. Especially if that's the best practice. If the best practice is to never be the initiator, to only show it if someone else already previously set up the card. That's a very catch-22 kind of best practice. I think that's funny.
Yeah, it's not clear why Stripe is recommending that right now. But anyway, that's all I had for brainstorming. I think there's a huge opportunity for whatever level of like you want to code this up, anywhere from it shouldn't take you more than about 10, 15 minutes to get a pay page up like I've got, to if we can get something working with payment request API, I think that would be pretty sweet. And if we have problems with it, we'll just file issues in the spec, and then I can go talk to people. Like I'll be seeing Marcos, one of the co-authors of the spec, like next week at the Mozilla All Hands. So yeah, we can make this spec better. Is my point. By hacking on it, but by saying candidate recommendation, they're saying we think this is good to go. Like y'all should implement this. We think it works, and the browsers are shipping it live. Like it's clearly being used. That's a good sign. How are we on time? When's the next session?
I think we're on time for our 15-minute late schedule.
We are on time for the delayed schedule.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay.
So now it is audio and decentralized aggregation.
So what's in here?
Audio.
Okay. Yeah, serendipity, right? The serendipity discovery session? Cool.
Did you get streaming session?
I did, and in the middle of the session, last session, it stopped, and I didn't notice. I do have a camera, but good. Very cool.
Security stuff?
I've just been letting it.
Letting it run.
I've just been letting it crank.
All right, everyone. That was the end of the payment session. Thanks for joining us. Check out some of the other sessions.
The problem is it's the first time I've actually had
Yeah, I forgot to. I think that's great.
Oh.
We'll put in timestamps.
Well, he gave me a profit. I No, not really. I'm saying I have a reason, and I could probably use the money to come to more of these events and not feel as guilty about it, but.
Reducing your guilt is a good thing.
And on the other hand, I feel guilty, but I also equally feel guilty about asking other people for money.
Oh, I'm sorry. Actually, I think I do it here. It's less of you asking for money and more of you addressing this pent-up demand to give, giving people the opportunity to sponsor the work. It's not, you're not, like, they feel guilty for taking it free work. It's like, you're not asking for gifts. What you're doing is you're enabling people to support the work.
Like, I'm considering doing it only because I'm really curious how many people feel guilty.
I would guess a good percentage of people are using those plugins and they don't get your download numbers. They're not shipping.
I don't know, I just get the prediction for someone to buy me lunch. No, I'm just saying, it's only sort of if I know the money thing, because he would feel guilty.
No, I think he would feel the lead that he can actually donate to.
Oh.
Oh, awesome.
Oh, you're welcome to join us on the not make sure you us out.
And I'm taking the last breakfast burrito with egg and potatoes.
Congrats.
Because that's what I've been doing all day. It's like the perfect fuel amount where it like makes the hunger go away, but it doesn't make you fall asleep. Oh, you just did the slow taco trip? Slow taco trip.
What time did you wrap up here? 5. Yeah, so.
The last session is at over 4:45, and we're just gonna.
All right.
What time do you get it home?
I think we'll start next.
John's there?
Yes, and the other room.
He's in Johnny Block.
Just right around the corner.
Everybody's still stretching? I'll start audio, I guess, whenever. Good.
Oh, just get them out there.
Nice.
So much less crap.
Everybody at home, now's a good time. Stand up. Oh, stretch it out. Take a deep breath in through your nose.
Stretch. 4 out of 5. It's like the 7th inning stretch. 7 out of 9.
Out through your mouth. Feels good. Give your spine a twist. Your neck a twist. Not too much. Popped it. Yeah. Has there ever been an IndieWebCamp yoga session?
Yeah, I can do that.
It's true.
I'm a certified teacher now.
Right.
Yeah, they put 5 p.m. for the party and meetup, so. That's the,
Do we need to wrap a few minutes early?
I think if we end on time, I think we need to be conscious that some people might
Start coming in.
show up early. Just chill and come in. That's the last part. Probably should have put some space in there. Figure out how to do the cars. So, yeah, we went over just the parts of the next one to see if you had it or not.
Oh, we have audio.
Yeah, I don't think it's bad. I think it's going to be pretty straightforward. Watch your things. Nice. So you have first wave posts.
Okay. Everybody likes to talk audio? Let's talk audio. Can somebody take notes? David, are you okay taking notes?
Audio.
Yeah, there's a link from the schedule grid into the Etherpad. Cool. Well, I just have a couple things to show. Folks coming in? Okay. Coming in. Yeah, so I like podcasting, and I wanted to do it in an IndieWeb kind of way. MicroPub is great for this because it already supports files. So although there was no MicroPub client at the time that would let you upload audio, MicroPub is essentially just like a form post for most of the things you want to do. So I made a very simple one that I call Screech. It's got a page on the IndieWeb Wiki that talks about it. It's open source, so you can run your own. And it has very few actual niceties. It's pretty much just a form, but it will pull out some like ID3 data. So if you've tagged your MP3 file well, it can actually help fill out some of this stuff. And when I make a post, it just looks like this. It has a little player built in. I have added a new feature to my site where I can give a text transcript. And currently, all I'm doing with these is they're hidden behind an HTML5 details element, and it's just showing an iframe with the plain text. But I would like to do more with that. And so, as an example, I've been doing these interviews, and I'll be doing some tomorrow, so hopefully folks will be around, doing 1-minute interviews for the This Week in the IndieWeb podcast. And they go in the podcast, which itself is 10 minutes, but then I've also been taking those out and sort of making teaser videos that I can post like on platforms that don't support audio first as a first party. So like Twitter doesn't really support audio posts. Facebook doesn't really support audio posts. So what people are doing more and more is making videos that are just kind of throwaway imagery so that you can have something to look at while the audio plays. And yeah, who cares what the actual thing is? So I started playing with these as well. And because I already make a transcript to read for my podcast, it was pretty simple to like take that, run it through some open source tools, get the alignment so that the text has time codes, and then feed that into a tool called Audiogram that was originally made by WNYC Studios, but the BBC did a version that has even more features, and that actually supports the subtitles and the captioning. And just generate a little video. So like this creates a it's called baked in subtitle. So it's just pixels rendered on top of an image. And I found that like, it's kind of neat. Like people do definitely watch them and click through and follow along to come back to the main post. So I think that's interesting as a way of kind of making the syndicated copy on a silo that doesn't support audio. You can at least like give them a teaser or something that's gonna get people to come listen to the full thing. Oh geez, where did I put my other ones? Let's see if I can find this. I did at the last IndieWebCamp, I did a longer experiment on actually building in real captions. So there's an API for HTML video captions. And what's happening here is I actually faked all of this. So this is a video tag where the source for the video is an MP3 file. But I also gave it a poster image so that it gives it a background. And then I put the subtitles in, like, I forget what it's called. There's a format that's very XML. That has the timings, and those get displayed. There's not a lot of good editing tools out there that I've found. So if other folks are playing with this, I would love to know what folks are using for tooling around captioning audio and creating that aligned text, because it's a lot of work and not a lot of fun. And the automated tools are like so-so. And so let's see. Right. And so there are some folks that are doing this with like pretty interesting results, I think. They're, I don't know what they call them. I call them like live captions. So you have the entire transcript, but as you play, it highlights both like the chunk of text. And I'm not sure that how they decide what to break those chunks into, like how they decide where those boundaries are. But I think it's a neat effect. And they also have this like share ability that lets you essentially like create a permalink with the quote as a way to share just a snippet of a longer piece of audio. And there's a similar project that just came out from the Field Train folks. Shortcut is what it's called. And I don't have this working yet, but it's essentially a tool that you can deploy yourself, and it lets people come to your site, use these transcripts. They can like highlight text from the transcript, and that will create a little sub-segment out of your main audio thing that they can then share around, which seems kind of fun. And that might be something that could be deployed and played with as a hack day thing. Like I bet it could be set up in a day. But yeah, those are just like some of the things I've been thinking about in terms of audio. I know lots of folks are doing microcast now, and I think that's really a neat thing that could be more well supported with web tools. I know Aaron built his micropub client to actually like do some audio editing. So when he posts his microcast, like his tool actually does some post-processing of the audio, and he's talked about maybe even having it add on like his music and credits stuff so that he can just very quickly like knock out the 5 minutes of kind of free-flowing thought and post that out there. Although he does a lot of like small edits, so like that, I don't know, that's harder. If you're good at just like turning on the recorder and going, I think that's a really cool way to go. And I feel like there could be a lot of cool tools in that direction. But I want to kind of open this up to see what other folks are thinking or doing with audio or like have ideas about. Ranton, how do you do your podcast?
For a longer one, do it more traditionally.
Mm-hmm.
Short one, I record on my phone,
Mm-hmm.
and then I do it that way because in theory I want to get into the habit of being able to edit on my phone or iPad or something, an album or whatever, and posting it. Just like you said, making it much easier in terms of recording and publishing. Right now, I usually drop it into a project on my Mac and then just works faster. And then currently I have a little workflow where I run it through Auphonic.
Sorry, what is it called?
AUPHONIC.
Auphonic.
Which does some kind of level adjustment. And
Oh, sure.
And it has like the workflow is basically I run a little I have a little script I just type in a terminal, I give it the MP3 file and the title, and it uploads it to this.
Mm-hmm.
And then when this processes it, that's all the show notes, with all the artwork and the tags, and then that's accepted feeds into the server. So that's my little workflow. Like this stuff needs to be way easier.
Right.
Like I would love to be like in the Microsoft blog that I was at. I would love to eventually get to the point where someone could do a hit post, and then they say I want to do the money post, and it's almost like a hold down and record saying, I don't know if it's called that record like a Snapchat style, but like record, you like it, add some music at the end if you want, and then to make it really easy for anyone to be able to publish a
Right.
podcast. And then the flip side of that, the timeline make it easier to like listen to podcasts, and if they're longer, I love what you're talking about with someone being able to have a selection. It's almost like
To share out the
audio.
Yeah, block quote for audio is a good way of putting it, and
Cool.
I feel like that's something that is kind of just getting off the ground. Like that's exactly what Shortcut does, and it's kind of why I want to play with it.
Media fragments, help me do that.
Media fragments do, yeah. Yeah, have you played with media fragments at all? Aaron made this demo, and I got it going on my site. So, and actually, you can see this here. So, in the URL, there's this fragment of t = 51, and there's a little piece of JavaScript in my page that essentially is like watching all media players for start and stop events. And let's see, it's got a bug where I need to be on the permalink for a page if there's more than one. If there's more than one like media element in the page, it kind of goofs. Actually, it'll probably goof here too. But yeah, you can play this. You can kind of jump into the middle, and I've got a piece of JavaScript that will reset it. So like if I revisit the page, then it's set to that timestamp. But you can also do snippets. So like I could give it 17 to 25. So it'll start at 17 seconds. Oops. Should start at 17 seconds and then play until 25 and stop. And like YouTube actually supports this too. You can create clips that way. And yep, it stopped. So that's cool because that's essentially free. You know, it's just baked into the browser. You need to get those numbers into the URL for the media element. So like it has to be on your video tag or audio tag or like in the URL of the source tag to make sure that it actually gets picked up. But that's all this JavaScript does is it looks for something in the page URL and makes sure to stuff that into the media URL. And yeah, it's kind of free that way. What was another? I'm not going to be able to find this right now. I've seen some other really fun experiments with like video that has page elements that kind of follow it around. So like very timeline-driven things where chunks of a page will scroll. I think it's like an O'Reilly how-to course. And I don't know, like I feel like I kind of want to play with that stuff, but really it's like you said, the tools are so bad. Like we really need to get it to a point where more people are able to make more audio more easily. There's also like the web audio API that I've been curious to play with. It should allow for things like, for the stuff that you always have to do, because you kind of like always need to do noise reduction. You always need to do the compressor to like make your voice not sound tinny. And those are the things that I like as a podcast editor, I get pretty fast at doing them, but they're very tedious, and there's not really a reason that a human should have to think about those. So I could absolutely see, you know, like you do the recording, press to, you know, hold to record when you let go. It just does those pieces of processing before you post it. And that would be slick. Like what is, maybe we could bring back Vine, but it's just for audio.
I really think that it's something, yeah, I don't know if find that out, the rest of the whole thing would be great. If you're a record like a minute, you don't want that, but like, yeah, just the idea of making it really easy for anyone to record something, see if they like it.
Someone was chiming.
Publish it.
Yeah, I think that's cool. Does anybody else have thoughts? Any other audio things? Is anyone consuming audio in a new way? That's another thing. Like when I find an episode of a podcast, like someone's like, check this out, or they share it. Jeremy Keith is great at these. He's like, I listened to this episode of a thing, and I hate listening to long form audio in the browser because I like to listen to it mobile. If I have to listen to a 50-minute podcast, you know, I'm going to want to like wander off and do other things. And Safari
doesn't really like playing in the background that much. Like it'll glitch out and close itself. So I use Huffduffer for this, which is also by Jeremy Keith, and essentially it's just like a service that will let you take it's a bookmarking service for audio files, and it will just turn it into an RSS feed, which is great. And so I subscribe to my own feed, and I just like stuff new episodes of things in there. And that's one of those interesting things that I feel like should be built into the web already. Like it shouldn't have to be a standalone service. And Huffduffer does a great job. I love it. But it's like one of these weird things where until I knew about it, this felt stupidly impossible. And once Huffduffer was there, it's like, okay, that problem is solved. But it's not something that a lot of people talk about, which I think is interesting.
Yeah, I'll have to look into that. I've been listening to a fair amount of podcasts and also trying to sometimes in the car, so I use the phone mostly and Overcast on the phone. And then I've been getting out and walking, doing the earbuds thing. So we'll leave the phone in the house and just go with the watch. Incredibly painful the podcast to the watch. So,
Yeah. How does that work?
how does that work? The workflow looks something like grabbing the MP3 from its RSS feed, processing that through something like
Audacity?
Audacity.
Yeah.
Taking it, changing tempo to whatever you're comfortable with.
Oh, sure.
30x or 70x usually happens. So each different podcast has its comfortable listening speed.
Right.
I listen to a lot of British voices for football and soccer podcasts. So if you have a heavy accent, you have to slow down.
Right. Definitely.
Doesn't come as quickly. So because seeking doesn't work on a watch, it's chunked down by the 32nd or so. And so an hour long is going to be like 120 pieces.
Right.
Those pieces are all tied with the same album and artist. Those are forced down to the device and then live on there. And so it's the dirty act to seek. And so you're not listening to a podcast, you're listening to an album, a spoken word album of 120 tracks that if you go forward or back, if you want to hear something again, miss something.
Right.
I don't know, I have a podcast app on here.
That runs purely on your watch?
Yeah.
I guess there's that.
Which one?
Well, this is an Android Wear watch.
Oh, what?
Oh, it's an Android. It's a Android Wear.
Well, step one can't be buy
an Android. Yeah. Try again with new hardware. I think that's fascinating. I mean, yeah, you essentially like invented from scratch audiobooks.
That's coming out of the watch, by the way.
It's pretty loud.
You have
Yeah, it seems like we're close to where watch apps will be able
to do the streaming and audio. Like you're listening to it on a busy stream through Bluetooth, so you don't need it to be high quality. I always tell people lowest quality, not because I don't care about quality, I mostly care about the transfer time it takes because your phone is shoving into the watch over
Bluetooth, right? Yeah.
I know, everybody who has an iPhone is very passionate. That's still the original
I had these, I had mine for release whatever it is.
Yeah.
And the only thing I wanted it to do, everything was fast enough, I was super happy with it. The only thing I wanted it to do was have a cell radio so I could leave my phone somewhere.
Right.
And it's what I get. The amount of things that the phone is enough to bother, because I'm very bad about getting sucked into it. You pull it out. Most of the time, you pull the phone out when it's vibrated. You've put it back before you've done the thing that you pulled it out to do because because the weaponized distraction was like, oh look, there's a timeline over here. That was one notification, but really, hey look, Twitter or some other infinitely scrollable thing.
Yeah.
They're like, what fresh words does the news app have for you today? And you're like, oh no, I was supposed to check on the calendar. And with the watch being just painful enough to get things out. Yeah, you do a check-in somewhere or
Mm-hmm.
or whatever, like everything was just more buttons.
Right. It's fascinating because it's got to be so stripped down because it's so tiny and limited. So it's almost more geared towards producing than these devices that we use to consume because it would be no fun to read Facebook on there. That's great. That it puts me in mind of another thing. Like the reason I started doing the IndieWeb podcast is because like every week there's this generated newsletter that is a ton of wiki edit links. It's just notifications about stuff more than anything else. And often those are like a link was added to some page, and so the interesting thing is actually in some article over here. And I wanted this podcast because I wanted that summary in a chunk that would just be like delivered straight to me. I couldn't get too distracted. I wouldn't wander off and like go read everything. I wanted to have this small thing. And I think that's true about a lot of the stuff that I consume. Like I feel like I would rather have an audio stream. And I haven't thought about this until now, but I'm really curious what like an audio micro sub client would look like. Like Aaron showed off Together earlier today, which is kind of a prototype IndieWeb reader, and the same backend server that's like tracking all of these blogs that you're following could have an audio client that talks to it, and it would probably be some text to speech garbage, but that would be a fascinating kind of thing. And I don't know what it would look like.
Yeah, so like the exercise is one, but my other weird accessibility issue is daughter is not quite old enough to put herself to sleep. So the evenings usually end up being, okay, she's fallen asleep, but she's not driving it. So I have about 15 to 20 minutes that she needs to be held before she can be set down. Right. Before bed. But you also don't want to lighten her face because her face is right next to your face. And so usually you get another 20 to 25 minutes worth of audio. That's a decent one.
Right, but in a constrained way because you can't just go like get out your laptop.
You can't type out things. You can't really like watch lines. It's always like, oh, you can
small motions.
move over to touch the thing because you don't have to dig it out of your pocket. It's hard.
I have a question for smartwatch wearers. How many of you, and please be honest, how many of you use the nose? Just only one?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I stopped wearing mine because I had an Android ecosystem. My phone recently broke, so I don't have the watch now. But yeah, all the time I would almost only use my nose to activate the watch. I would be like, I get a notification, I'm riding my bike, and I'm just like, all right, swipe for that. And yeah, it works. It does.
Wake on Lyft takes care of a lot of it. So,
yeah, definitely.
But yeah, as far as maybe pausing something if you're in a club or something else.
Yeah, I think pausing music is really the big use case because it's like I'm holding stuff, someone's talking to me now, and so yeah, like swipe up for that interface and tap to pause.
With Bluetooth earbuds, you take one out that pauses.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
Pauses audio when it senses it's good.
Mm-hmm.
And then back equals.
Yeah, so that's really interesting, and that could theoretically, like an indie player that was an audio interface to your feeds, could have like those tiny buttons that are like, like this. You can click to like the thing that you're listening to that goes to your site. You could start a reply and talk to your watch to like draft that post.
You could always try repurposing Teacup. That uses that same button.
Oh, right. Teacup it runs on an.
Well, he was running it on a Pebble.
That's right. It was a Pebble Watch thing. Yeah.
It wasn't actually.
Aaron wrote a Pebble micropub client to track his food and drink.
Yeah, but that means that idea is extensible to other things.
Yeah, that's neat.
One of the things about the podcast is kind of interesting. It's actually the podcast ecosystem is the most unique node of anything we have in a way because
Totally.
it's like there's no centralized. There's not a Twitter. There's not a YouTube. It's like
There's iTunes.
yeah, there's iTunes, but thankfully for now, Apple has chosen to not like use their power.
Yeah,
Like,
they never close the door.
They
Like,
have the directory of like all podcast clients who work independently of
You know, because like podcast clients have been to solve that problem for Android. You can't really use the iTunes directory.
Yeah, so, yeah.
I mean, a lot of apps republish it because it's scrapable. You can.
Yeah, but I'm saying there's been a movement to have something that's a little more.
Oh, sure.
Alternative platform.
Which would be great. I just think like it's not like the podcast like closed versions of podcast clients like Stitcher and so there's a couple others like
Yeah.
That one is, its MP3 links aren't the MP3. It needs to be loaded in a browser so that it has a key to play it. Because they,
Wow.
So you can't scrape so you can't just go grab the link. You need to
The
load
other
it in
problem
something
is
that's
reviews. Outside of iTunes, there is no other place to review podcasts.
well, so like everybody has their own. So what I was getting at is like the closed platforms, they're small. Like they don't have like a YouTube dominance. Like it's like 8% of podcast listeners or something. But yeah, then every podcast client has their own way to do things. So they all scrape the iTunes directory, but they all like Overcast has its own review recommendation system.
Yeah.
And they all have their own syncing thing, and that's good and bad. And like it's good in that I do think it's more distributed, more open than just using Facebook and just using YouTube. But it's bad in that it's also like if you discover a podcast and you want to subscribe to it, well, the only way, really, not the only way, like right now it's really common to have subscribe in Overcast, subscribe in Podcast, subscribe in buttons.
Yeah, you have all of those
buttons. But,
buttons.
I think there's probably a solution with following blogs and subscribing to podcasts that could be the same. Kind of like I know Aaron had his I can't remember what he calls it, like his follow, I guess. And I think something like that could be done for podcasts too. So like once you find the podcast you want, you say subscribe.
Yeah.
Something knows your favorite way to subscribe.
You just gave me an idea that I don't know why it never occurred to me before, but I would love to see Bridgie support iTunes reviews as a web mention that goes.
Would you publish?
No, the other way. So
backfeed.
I publish. Yeah, I want to backfeed my iTunes reviews about my podcast to my actual site. Why do I not have podcast reviews on my podcast site? Because to me that is where they go. And so like, why not pull them from Overcast and iTunes and like have them in that one place? Which I don't know why that never occurred to me until now.
Filing it right now.
Yeah, that's really interesting. But yeah, it's a great point. And so like podcasting both suffers, I guess it's a great example because like most of the new things we talk about in IndieWeb where it's like this silo does this thing and it works super well because it's centralized, like podcasting suffers from, and to some extent someone has tried to fix all of these things, but it's still this really interestingly weird ecosystem because no one owns it and it's not locked away.
Yeah, it's really, really open, and it stays that way. But the directory aspect and like moving between platforms is an issue. And like, if I want to move from, like, let's say I do decide Apple's not for me, I'm going to get a new Clear Watch, and I want to move from Overcast to Pocketcast. There's no like open standard. I guess I can export, I guess, a PML or something like that.
Sometimes you can.
But
if you use Overcast, that does it. I learned that up until like 2 versions ago, the Apple Podcasts app still supported OPML export. If you synced it with iTunes, you could get an export from there. But the most recent iTunes dropped the feature. So you can no longer export your podcast list, which I had a great time with when my phone died, because the first thing I did was go like manually subscribe to all of my podcasts on an iPod. And then it was like, great, I'll just put this on my new phone now that I have it. And even though they were both Apple devices, like the only way to do that would have been to restore it as though it was the same device to like pull those subscriptions in. There was no OPML, no scanners. But Overcast does, like, and that's for me, it's a probably the number one reason to use it is so I know I can back up my listening list.
Yeah, and if you listen across devices too, it syncs you across.
Yeah.
iPad, I have an iPad, that's the one. Use. It's got voice communication.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's just like his syncing back at it, like, which is great. Would be nice if there was kind of more of a way to like sync stuff so you could have press. Not just press, but like I should be able to come up with my own podcast in my head, and you start listening to mine, then you go overcast, and it knows where you were.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was
It's a service thing.
Whatever
That just holds you. But that was the whole time.
Yeah. And TweetMarker was like, that was the whole point, was like switch between apps that were built by different people with a kind of somewhat open API kind of thing. But it seems like everybody falls back into, well, no, I'm just going to use iCloud to sync, I'm just going to use my own.
The difficulty there is like Twitter's the monolith. It's just the one. It's just a single time. It's just a single time. When you're talking about podcasts, just as was showed up there, one podcast can be whatever it is, like 7 different MP3 names, and so you don't necessarily know which how to sync
right each part.
content to kind of maybe I need one to sync.
Yeah, a lot of backends use, getting back to the problem, like that podcast recruiting, so important. A lot of backends will key on that, those are unique identifiers, but you can still have, like if I add a podcast to Overcast, it doesn't know that what the iTunes ID is, that you can have 2 references to the same thing.
Right. Which is fascinating also because in the end, all of these are just files on the web. And that's what Huffduffer works on. When you share something, it's got a bookmarklet that is pretty good about trying to like find audio elements in the page. And it just grabs the MP3. And then if it can, it also gets like page title and summary and tags and dumps those in there. But like really all it does is wrap an RSS around the MP3 and it's just hot linked because that's how that all works. The listening thing reminded me of Last.fm, and there's a GNU FM server that you can run that does the scrobbling thing that Last.fm does, but almost no podcast players tie into this. There are a couple. There's one on Android, AntennaPod, that actually can like send the episodes of the things that you listen to this server, so you have to like run your own service in order to catch them. But I think like kind of going back to how hard it is to share, and there's no like recommending system other than what's inside the silo. Like I can't think of a single client where I would be like, I want to share this portion, even in a native app where like this stuff should be easier to be like, I want to share a link to this episode on my site. Or like this particular snippet, like you need extra tools for that even now. And so I think that's actually maybe a place where the IndieWeb could do a better job than a lot of these silos. Because you could take like, you know, a fair use 30-second snippet of that episode of 99% Invisible and put it on your site and have it actually like link to the thing in a way that other people could subscribe and pick it up. How are we doing on time? We're about out of time.
10 minutes over, 5 minutes under, depending on which time
Which reality?
And interesting, like you were talking about, if you like a podcast and like send them, like, I guess it would be a thing to, like, it would be kind of interesting to like approach some of the podcast client makers and ask them to kind of like consider using some IndieWeb standards when they have, when they have similar functionality. So like if I keep using over 90 example, if I'm Overcast and I say, webcam or thing or something, maybe you could discover if there's a microhub or web engine.
Or a web engine point, yeah.
Yeah, I guess trend would be, let's get rid of it.
Yeah, web engine, I think, is it.
Are different.
Well, I mean, to like let my site where my podcast lives know that I got like a 2-star iTunes review, because that review I think has a URL.
Yeah.
And so like all it really needs to do is, I mean, this is totally a bridgy project, but yeah, I really like the idea that, you know, fine, if you're an Overcast user, like they're hosting review content anyway, so why don't they put microformats on them and send web engines? And podcasts, I feel like a lot of podcast hosting is already pretty DIY and scattered. So if we deliver it as a working system that's built on these IndieWeb building blocks, I think it might get some adoption. I feel like it's probably not going to be, certainly not going to be harder than building this, building all this infrastructure to host these reviews and build a recommender engine and then get users to use it. Like that's all much harder than send a web mention.
Yeah, so they can do different things that are relevant. That's, to my knowledge, has not been used for podcasts.
Right.
Notifications, but like these podcasts, like these podcasts, almost all these podcasts have some back end and just sit there and crawl.
Right.
Devices people all the time. And
Yeah.
that would be an improvement.
Yeah, there's almost no reason for it not to. Like, oh wait, I think the reason is because you would want to specify in the feed file where the hub is to subscribe, and that would be a non-standard RSS element.
You can do it.
I think they're
You could
trying to cover up our signage.
All right, I'm gonna grab a seat. Good talk, everyone. This has been audio. We're probably gonna keep talking, so if you're in the future, maybe keep listening. I don't know.
Are they using both of the rooms, or do they want to use this?
I don't know. Do you know?
They're using both of them, yeah. Okay. We should have had. Sorry. I didn't think about
There is an overtime, they said they don't work till 6, and they said set it at 5.
That's what they said, but like I just looked at the meetup, it says 5, so we're ready people will show up, so that's.
Right, so the party years will start at 5.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
You know, it's Saturday. It's like people will be putting off work, so the buildings are not.
Well, people will, I'd be shocked if they all showed at 5 for a 3-hour party or whatever it is.
What was the party like?
I don't, what's it, right, I've never been to it, but it's.
The EFF?
It's the EFF, it's just not hang out. I
Probably,
don't know what
the EFF party is like.
probably drinking beer with people who are super serious about security. So you got any BGPs you want to sign?
Really have been meeting this time for 2 days. It's quite interesting. That's what made mine.
We have another session though, right?
Yeah, what is the last one?
It's the light favorites.
Those kinds.
Ooh, what a great session to end on.
Yeah,
So we should probably start.
yeah, so we want to hang out the window and tell the other people.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll keep it small.
I have to be prepared. I have to, let's see.
Fun day. How about we do it again tomorrow? Literally, the gentleman who was sitting here earlier gave me a project. He succeeded in finding something that never occurred to me.
A way to make more money?
No.
He succeeded in figuring out that if you don't set a time zone string and instead you just set an offset, it totally kills all of my time zone handling code.
Time zones are hard.
Yes, I know. That's why in 2015 you said time zone strings shouldn't be used, and instead everybody should just use offsets.
Yeah.
I know. I in my notes about why I should try to figure out a better solution. The thing is, I have to work with what I have, which is
Fair. Jacob is going to tell you your contact button was broke, but it's not broke. Your DMs aren't open, which is probably more potential.
Ah, okay. I need to
Because when you click the button, it sends you to your own inbox, and I'm like, close.
Oh. Okay. Yeah.
Didn't have anything secret that I wanted you to know. It's just.
The UX should be better. I tend to just follow everyone that I meet at IndieWebCamp. So. Oh, what's that? What is it like? Are these ads?
I mean, it's the reel that runs on throughout the building. Join us. Buy a disc. Look how much fun you'll have.
It's UTC -5.
Get the door. John.
All right, I gotta run along. So you keep running UTC.
Yes, definitely. Tomorrow or you're leaving?
Oh, no.
Okay.
I'll figure out
Tomorrow.
On the internet. On the internet. Yes.
PHP 5.5.
Hack something up on the fly and send it to us. What's the demos?
Thanks, I'll be with you.
Are we ready to talk about whatever it is we're talking about? I know we're still missing a few people.
Wow.
For being a friend.
I'm sorry.
What?
No, different reference. So what time are we starting the session? Now? Okay.
It's gotta be done.
Okay.
Maybe a half hour.
Yeah, fine with me. The less I talk, the happier I am. In the beginning,
There was the note. And it was short.
no, in the beginning there was the article or the blog post, and it was long. But it was too long, and therefore the note or the aside was created. And this spawned many, many types of posts, to the point at which we can't figure out what all of them actually are for. What is a like? How does a like differ from a favorite? Are they the same thing? Are they different things? Can I get an amen? No, sorry. No.
Like,
Yes.
God, what is the IndieWeb email?
But that was the first question I actually asked in this community, which is what is the difference between a like and a favorite? And I got a lot of different answers, to the point at which I still do not have a good answer to that question.
And during the course of that, Twitter changed from favorites to likes.
Yeah, so what is the difference?
Hearts versus stars.
Yeah, but that's an icon difference. That's not a difference in meaning.
But that is the difference in meaning to users. They changed it and then likes went up.
That's because everybody hearted everything? Or everybody just started?
People like hearting things more than like starting things.
Starring or starting?
Starring.
Okay. But there was only one definition that I actually really found interesting, which was one individual who used one to express their appreciation for something specific, and the other one for appreciating a concept. So for example, X likes, let's say, the Beatles versus X likes this article. So that was the only definition that actually had a very distinct level of categorization. One referring to you, to a profile of you as a person, and the other referring to an individual thing that you wanted to express.
Right.
But still don't have an answer. And then you get to bookmark. Bookmark seems to be liking or favoriting something without any emotional attachment to it. So what is the difference between that? I know. Yeah, but if you're posting it publicly, what are you saying to other people? So this is all about what you are, if you're posting it. If you bookmarked it personally in your browser, you're not saying anything to anybody else. So what are you saying to people as a whole? If you say, I bookmarked this, again, publicly, right. I like this, I favorited this.
In the olden days,
Which olden
to
days?
some extent still with Pinboard, but Delicious did
the social bookmarking thing mostly because it allowed people to create tagging like full taxonomies. So like Mache, who runs Pinboard, did a post.
Is that how you pronounce that?
Yeah.
I've never actually heard it pronounced.
He's got a WAV file on his website.
Okay.
It's very useful.
Okay.
And we write about him, and I have to say his name for the podcast, so I have to check it out. He did a great post a long time ago about fan bases, like fan groups and fan fiction writing.
And their tagging. I think I remember reading it.
Yeah. And what's interesting is I feel like that particular use of bookmarks, or bookmarks with a tag, is not that common in the indie web. At least the folks that I've seen that do bookmarks, I don't feel like tagging tends to enter into it. I could be wrong about that.
Well, so far, I don't know if anybody's.
On your website, yeah, nice.
Would you mind saying a big debate that we had years ago about whether a link inherently limit application, and of course it doesn't necessarily, a link to something because you don't like it, and that led to the creation of the no-follow. No-follow was created because you wanted to be able to generally contribute to the page rank.
Yeah.
Specific page.
And admittedly, that's a more of an internal thing where this is a surface to other people viewing it. You have one that's more of a computer algorithm. But the question is, when you see that somebody else has bookmarked something, what do you attribute to it?
It depends on context, right?
Well, that's the thing. Like and favorite are context.
In
Now-
Delicious, you didn't really have much context. So it was just
Yeah.
like the link was there.
But in your own website, you can have as much context as you yourself wish to have. And the problem is, since they're words, or stars, hearts, clovers, diamonds, horseshoes, yeah, you got the reference there. Basically, the question is what you attribute to it the same as what people visiting? If you care whether or not people get the meaning that you're actually trying to convey, how do you actually do that? It goes to sentiment.
If you look at what happened with Facebook, Facebook created likes, right?
And then people ask for dislike.
But there was no dislike, yeah, and everybody wanted that. So now they have what they call reactions. And one of the reactions that's possible is anger. This makes me angry.
Yes, I know.
So they now have another option. They have nuance. It was really, I mean, it was kind of fairly meaningless. People would like pretty much everything that they're doing supposed to do. And it didn't really need very much. You didn't really have to do an assessment.
But it goes back to under that particular model where it was either you liked it or you did nothing. How did you say, I found this article about, let's say, World War II interesting without implying you like Nazis? To just think of a really recent news example. But basically, if you're interested in a subject, but the subject is horrible, and you want to share it with other people, how do you not say that you liked it?
Mm-hmm.
You didn't like the topic, you thought the article was worth sharing with people.
There was an interesting discussion, I think just a few weeks ago, about like the personal differences. I think that post, but was it?
I'm not sure.
Was it Scannable that did the post about the difference, their personal difference between a like and a bookmark? A like, and something where they were just like, I like this and I want to let that person know.
Yeah.
Versus I want to broadcast to the world, like I want other people to know that I like this.
Well, you also have the web action terminology, which was not like, it was props, which was basically endorsement of the article, not endorsement of the topic.
And Medium has claps
Yeah.
for that now, which
But
is
you-
almost like.
but you
I
see
make
why
your
I'm
post,
confused.
But I approve of your performance.
Yeah, but you see why I'm confused. I can't figure out any of these terms. I'll put all them in, but I can't figure out what I want to use.
No, the web action switched to like.
Oh, you switched that to like too? I
Yeah,
haven't looked at
well-
web actions in a while. But it was at one time props, if I remember correctly.
To try to abstract it, yeah.
Yeah. But I'm saying terminology is important, and then you get into language, which is the other part of it, which is what happens if it's translated into another language. Then your entire emotional sentiment may have gone out the window because somebody translated one thing as slightly
Just to
different.
update the history, the like button or link is now 10 years old, and it was introduced by Friend Feed on October 30th,
2007. Yes, and Facebook popularized likes, but also bought friend feed. And then shut it down.
So that they could trademark the word like?
Did they? I don't know.
I don't know. I know they tried to trademark face and book, which are two words I didn't think you could trademark so easily. But anyway, but the point is, when you're trying to attach sentiment to any URL, how do you do that? Again, it's a question I can't get an easy answer to.
I like to think of it in terms of intended audience. And like, what's interesting is when you make a post on your site that's about some link, so there is some link that your post is referring to, you can just mention, like you could just mention the link, and then free text goes a long way to telling like whether you feel something about it, what you want people to do with it.
But likes often don't have free text, which is interesting.
Right, yeah, so.
Mine do, actually, a lot of the time.
Yeah,
But
a lot of them say like their post or like this URL.
Yeah, but I often have a little text under it if I feel it needs explanation.
Oh, sure. Yeah, so what I find interesting is like there's each of those things to me usually tells a story. So if I make a post about liking something, I always make sure, I send web mentions manually. And so like I always make sure to send the web mention because what I care about is having that person know that I saw their thing and I'm like, good job, you posted this thing.
But do they know that?
Posting something that's a favorite, I feel personally would be more like I am saying, hey, I like this thing. And I think people that follow me should know this. So in some sense, I would almost feel like a post that is me liking something and I want only that person to know about it wouldn't show up in a feed necessarily. Like I would make a permalink and send a web mention, but I wouldn't necessarily put that in a feed. And then bookmarks go a different direction where maybe that's actually just for me. And so it wouldn't be in a feed and I might not send web mentions, but I better tag it because like I'm saving something for later and I need to associate these terms with it so that I can come back to it.
Yeah, bookmarks are private on Instagram, for example.
I didn't know they had
You see, my problem is every time I discuss this, it doesn't make me feel as if I'm closer to an answer. It actually makes me feel like I'm farther away from one.
Yes, that's good.
I wish it wasn't. No, I'm saying I wish I was closer to an answer.
That's
yeah, but then you get to the secondary part, which is, what does it mean to me? I'm still posting it publicly where other people are looking at it. Back to, how do I convey what it means to me to other people? Do I need a glossary? And would you read a glossary of what like means to me?
What's manual until it hurts? I think you should drop the concept from your site and use only plain text notes with links until you find a pattern.
Well, actually, mostly did. I very rarely post any of those formats, even though I built them for the sole purpose of trying to figure out which one worked for me. So they're all there.
I think one thing that likes do is they increase the post like counter. So if you want to be one of those people or cause that post like counter to go up, then you can send them a like.
So what you're saying is I am the mouse who keeps pressing the button that shoots the electrode into the pleasure sensors of my brain until I kill myself.
Now you just described all social media. So
okay. I'm just challenging the assumption.
Because likes are the point. We know that Twitter has the compose box because without posts, there would be nothing to like.
Is that the way it works?
Yeah, no.
But
I
then
think you could frame it that way.
Yeah, but
like that's why Facebook has posts. Like, why did Facebook add video? So there would be more things to like.
Okay, but as a community, we're not Facebook.
It's true.
We're not trying to keep people's eyeballs to the degree that they are. We're trying to engage with other people.
How do you feel about React posts?
I have never done one. Because the first time that I used an emoji was yesterday for anything.
Right, for the duck vote.
Yes, and I did that just because I figured that was a good time to actually do an emoji for something. Honestly, we started out with hieroglyphs and we went to a nice alphabet. I don't know why we want to go back, but I'm a traditionalist. I'm the child of two teachers, so. But
you're answering your own question.
Yeah.
Regressing.
Yeah. I just wanted people to debate the fact that for the first time I actually did use one of them and see and try to figure out why. But either way, this whole thing with typing being something of a personal thing applies to everything. Why check into a place? It goes back to why do we have a type?
There can be like no one answer to this. Like,
Yeah.
I think it's a kind of a
But I ask myself a lot.
a pigeonholing approach to say we can tell you what a like is versus a bookmark or versus a favorite and why they're always different. And I think.
But you can for yourself.
Like you said, like translating that into another language, like the word that might mean the same thing vaguely has overlapping meanings that makes it different.
But it goes back to, if I have a different interpretation, how do I convey my interpretation of what I'm using it for to everybody else? In a community where you may do, well, the alternative is for me to like nothing, hate nothing, and have no emotions about anything because I can't convey them. I'm going to an illogical extreme, but the alternative to me being able to convey how I see things is for me not to convey anything or to constantly be misunderstood.
You have to use words too.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. There's
No, I know.
multiple definitions to words. And
I'm aware I'm overthinking the issue. I've been aware of that from the beginning. But I still think that at some point I'll come up with something that makes me happy. And I still haven't done that.
You want a universal definition of life that everybody agrees on?
No.
So you can use it and everybody will understand you?
No, I want a definition that a large percentage of people will agree on, not everyone. I want to try to get to the core of the matter, not necessarily the whole.
What if there? Yeah, there is no silo for the definition of life. Like it's decentralized. Everybody holds a different thing.
So it goes back to, I need my own glossary.
Or you need to just post links with text explaining why you posted it.
Yeah.
I mean, do you ever like stuff on silos or no?
Never. Because I still can't figure out what that means. Occasionally I've done +1, but +1 it doesn't have the same emotional context to me.
Interesting.
It seems like more of an endorsement. But it goes back to, that's why I said I'm better with endorsing something than I am saying whether or not I liked it, because what's like.
So a lot of folks on Twitter do they explain in their short bio what they mean when they say like likes are not an endorsement, or retweets are bookmarks.
I need a disclaimer. Okay.
I mean, maybe it's a thing that people do.
That's
very explicit.
That's an interesting thought. So the next question is, what is a check-in?
What is a check-in versus a post-good location?
Yes.
It means you were there.
Or are there?
But I was there regardless.
You're just letting people know you were
Yes, that.
Yeah. How do you? Yeah.
there. You're there at that point in time. You're letting everybody know. Why? It's up to you.
I don't know. I thought the most telling thing about that was I went from posting no check-ins to an experiment where I took a trip and everywhere I went, I posted a check-in. My site is linked into basically a mailing list. So every time I checked in, somebody it would get an email. And I actually got an email from somebody saying, I don't know if he's available because I've seen like 30 posts of every place he's been to in Ireland, but I have this question for him. So
Unintentional consequences of passing the email.
Well, I created the email thing because of the people who wouldn't bother to follow me any other way.
Sure.
And I did. I just put the box up there to subscribe, and I was surprised at who showed up for that particular medium.
If you want to pull it up, who has the access to the screen?
Oh, I can do it.
There's a whole Y section on check-in. There is no Y section on like, ironically.
Yes. But
I thought was
my point is not that I don't understand what check-in it could be. It's more, we say that these are types that the community uses, but we aren't necessarily all, I'm not saying in the exact same place, but we aren't necessarily all understanding of how we see it as a group. We'll never be identical.
That's good.
I agree, that's good. But a common understanding is always good, even if it's not identical.
Well, I don't know. I like that things change meaning over time. And it's still going to be context dependent. You can like something on Twitter maliciously, and people get it. And
Malicious?
You can hate like things because it's like an ironic thing to do, and your friends see it.
You're just trying to confuse me, aren't you?
I'm not. I think
You can
the
hate
world-
like things.
People are very confusing, and they're context this from moment to moment. And I think it's kind of beautiful the way that this evolves. And I don't know. I find it hurtful to think that there will be only one meaning to something like that.
Awkward situation mitigation. Really? No, this one I get.
I want to tell the world I'm somewhere.
No, I'm saying I get earning credentials. I get you don't want to tell people necessarily that you're at your house. But I don't get, I want to avoid other people, so I'm going to check in or not check in. Or is it, but I thought this was why to check in. Wouldn't this be under why not to check in?
No, that's, yeah, you want to,
That's why other people should check in.
no, by checking into a place,
You tell other people to avoid you?
Swarm will show you who else is there.
You can see it before?
Correct.
How is that?
I think that used to be too.
So should there be a why page on the like page and on the favorite page? And
Every page should have a why section at the top, which explains why you should do that thing or use that thing. And then a how-to afterwards.
anybody who feels comfortable with the concept who wants to do it, because clearly I don't. Or at least get it started.
So that's not going to be your project for tomorrow.
Writing the why page? No, that is just the question that will haunt me in my sleep.
I would rather see him implement patronage so that he gets recurring donations for his plugins.
Well, I might spend the entire time. Well, what's the opposite? Helping other people in this case. I don't know if I'm going to get to a project if there are enough people who want me to try to help them sort through the tangle of stuff I've already created.
So just think if they had a way to pay you for that help. They probably would.
Well, we'll see.
Great.
I have to remember that one.
Yeah, I could put a quote from, what movie was that? Tom Cruise.
Jeez. Jerry Maguire.
Jerry Maguire.
I really should have asked for that one.
David, for me, I implemented likes because I wanted to own my likes of tweets. Like I wanted to stop using, I've been like weaning myself off of the different, interactions on silos. I was like, what's something I still do on Twitter? Oh, I still like tweets. Oh, I want to stop doing that. How do I stop doing that? I can like them on my own site. And then I implemented it and I was like, this is cool. And then
I'm approaching it from the reverse direction. If I were ever to start liking things, it would start on my website and go somewhere else. It wouldn't go.
Yeah.
I never started liking things as a general rule on anything else.
So in that example, so I also implement IndieWeb to IndieWeb likes, obviously.
Yes.
And I liked it when people post some blog post and I think it's really cool, like on their personal site, but no one has liked it yet. Sometimes I like to be like, oh, I like this, and then that causes their face file, whatever, to show up with me there saying, at least, I liked it. It is
That's what I told one member of the community when he wanted me to help with the face piles. I said I needed more things. I needed more likes and other things in order to properly test
just
face
kind of
piles.
public approval of sorts, I guess, in that respect. So.
But it didn't work out. I didn't get any more likes, so somebody else wrote all the face piles.
Really?
The code for it. Remember, I wrote it years ago, but nobody ever used it. When it came time to re-implement it, I let somebody else do it. But again, it's just one of those questions I ask myself over and over again. What types do I actually want on my website and what do they mean? And it all boils down to that. I can spend all this time trying to figure it out. I've said for the longest time that I want to do something that Aaron has, which is itineraries. But the number of steps to get to itineraries, which is actually on my user page on the wiki, I haven't gotten to yet. Because in order to get there, I have to have location. And right now, I only support a single location for a post. I'd have to have two of them because in order to go from point A to point B, you must have both a point A and a point B. and I only have a point A. Then you need time. Right now, I do actually have time, not to write it. I was talking about time.
As a concept.
Yes, I have a start and a finish. So I do have that concept there. So you put all that together, and in theory, you get everything that you need, except it's not there. Then you need all of the field to describe what conveyance you're in and how you're getting there, which comes on top of actually being able to describe point A and point B.
So maybe separate out like posts like itinerary stuff and then responses, because it seems like there's very different questions involved there.
Oh, I separate everything out.
I mean, in terms of your reasoning of like why.
I was just using it as an example of something I actually do want to do.
Okay.
And I'm reasonably certain why I would want to do it. But there are other things where I have absolutely no idea why I would do it. And then what was that one that somebody came up with, chicken as a post tag? So
Was that Ben?
That was Ben. How many drinks did we have when we decided?
I don't know. It was before my time.
I remember it happening. But the thing is, you can have other types of posts we haven't even thought of. One day, somebody came up with jam. I think it was when This Is My Jam goes down. And it was,
This is my jam, not the jam.
yeah, and somebody came up with that as an IndieWeb type, and some people implemented it.
Or read posts or watch posts.
Yeah. Don't forget listen.
Listen.
Yeah. And that's still sort of an untapped, it was basically the response to Scrabble, which was the IndieWeb version. How do you declare that you are listening, watching, or reading something?
In a way that is performing.
Well, I was going to say in a way that's passive.
Well, that you're publishing the fact that you're doing it. And so the fact that you are letting people know, even if you don't have any buttons to push.
The reason I would consider it passive is because I am never going to manually post that I'm listening to a song. And it's not a thing I'm going to do ever. I want it to always happen automatically by the software that I'm using to play the music. Right. So it is not a post I will create by hand. It is a passive post because it's just sort of.
Well, the only one I can't figure out how you would theoretically automate is reading a book.
If you could use an ebook, you could automate the Kindle.
Yeah, no, the Kindle you could, but I'm talking about a physical book. Or at least with a newspaper, you could link to the digital version of it if you were reading a physical one. Yeah, but no, there are people who want to do that, who want to say, I'm reading this book because they want other people to talk. They want to invite conversation about the book. For example, I think it's Chris Aldrich who does book reviews and does a whole big, long thing on his site where, although admittedly in defense to Chris, is there something he doesn't do on his site? He likes to do as much as possible. But there's a thing, there's another list of options, and I'm sure there are a few I haven't thought of. There's, let's see, follow.
To Aaron's point about listen, I use Shazam, and that's a very active listen post type. I don't even know if it's the same post type, but it seems like if it's not the same, it's very similar.
It's like, I actually use Shazam more like I'm bookmarking a song.
Oh.
Yeah. That's how I think of it.
But the side effect is I was listening to it at this point in time.
Yeah.
It would be interesting if you could actually have your playlist generated by listen posts on your own site for determining how often you listen to a song and playing that song more often, which would be sort of interesting in itself. But then you get into follow type posts, which nobody has really implemented to any large degree, where you identify you are now following somebody for whatever reason. You have, let's see what else. You did exercise, and several other people I think followed on that, wanting to basically post from the equivalent of Runkeeper, Strava, and I forget which other ones people were using. A Fitbit, I think was one. Then there's, I think you're the only one doing sleep. It always comes back to how many things he's done first. So there are a bunch of other things you could do. And as I said, similar to him, I call them passive because I would not necessarily code my sleep manually on a site. It's the same as weather. Would you want to constantly put on the site, oh, today it is 65?
I want that on every one of my posts.
You mean what it was when you posted?
No, not what it was when you posted. Would you make it a weather post by itself? Unless the site in question was the theoretical house site that you keep saying you're going to build. So unless you want your house to report the weather individually,
Sure.
but weather on a post, if you actually go look at the issues for one of my things, it's on there somewhere.
I believe you look at some of the very early tweets, you will see a lot of tweets about the weather. People like to talk about the weather.
Well, yeah, I used to watch this podcast where the 5 minutes before the show on their live stream, it would be just people in the chat room shouting out what the weather was in their location and the person reading it on the air. That part of the show was never recorded, but for some reason, they kept doing that. And people got a kick out of this. Oh, it's 64 in Austin. But did I miss any possible types of posts since we seem to have?
There's lots. Oh, of course. You want to go through the top?
No, I'm saying, did I miss any?
Of the controversial or question?
Yeah. Well, the ones where you're recording your activity are not controversial in the sense that people would argue with them. Sometimes it's controversial why anybody would want to know that you spent 50 minutes on your bike today, or.
Not about that. It's about me. It's my site.
Yes, that's the counter argument.
Yeah.
So I might do that, but I might not syndicate that anywhere on the theory that I don't need to share that to other places. There are some things that you don't send anywhere else, and there's some things you do. And if I could figure out a way to get that off of my email subscribers list, I might post those things. But right now it doesn't discriminate. Or actually it does. So what you have the list. What else is on there that I missed of potential?
Note article, apply, RCP, photo,
We covered.
like, favorite, check-in, events, bookmark, repost.
But we didn't cover we didn't cover repost, photo, audio, or video, which are all media. But I don't think media is controversial in itself.
And the difference, you brought them up when we talked about the difference between a jam and a straw.
Yeah.
Collection posts.
Who's doing collection posts?
Oh, I have some. And
But you usually, whenever I say something, you usually say that.
they don't hurt you.
I'm not making fun of you. You're usually far ahead of most
There's
people in this
also
room.
a venue post.
A venue post.
Yeah, there is a type of post called venue, not a check-in.
So what is a venue post when you have created a venue?
It is a post representing the venue.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Well,
I never thought of it
There's probably no like published date.
as an alternative to a venue which is a non-dated thing. You have a venue that's a dated thing.
I don't know.
That's interesting. Because usually a venue is a static page that isn't part of your feed. Interesting thought.
I think there are no easy answers here.
But isn't that the point of the whole discussion? The point of the whole discussion is I have no idea.
Yeah.
And I've been here, what now? Nearly 4 years?
I think Marty had the
But
best
he's been
answer.
working on this for how long? He probably.
Like, post stuff as plain notes until you feel a compelling need to specialize their presentation. If you don't feel a compelling need to do that, then just keep posting notes.
Which is basically what I've been doing when I actually post something, which goes back to my other problem.
You're winning. You're doing it right.
But maybe you mean this as a plugin author. Like you're trying to help solve the problem for people who say, I want to post all these different kinds of posts.
I'm trying to solve the problem for myself, but I am not against solving the problem for everybody else at the same time.
Right. But if you don't have a problem, then it becomes harder to solve.
Okay, I will accept that point. At least I don't. For now, I have a problem I want to solve. I don't know if I will solve it tomorrow, since you have collectively now given me another problem.
Donations.
Yes, which the question is, what is more important? The thing I thought that I keep saying I want to do that I haven't done for a year and a half, or the thing that was just suggested today?
But what you feel like tomorrow morning.
but that's somewhat off topic. So anybody else want to take the floor, because we have 9 minutes, and I don't know if I have anything else to say.
Might be a good time to
Clean up, pack up.
clean it up.
I suppose I could do a soft shoe. I don't know how to do a soft shoe.
I want to ask about tags.
Okay, we didn't actually get the tag, did we? So what about tags?
So tagging is a response that people would do on Flickr a lot. They tag other people's photos, and that's the type of response. It's something that we've come up with a mechanism for doing on IndieWeb posts.
I think because
Outside
Ben
of
really
Spot
wanted it.
Zero, no one's really picked it up. Like, especially tagging other people's content. Even in-person tagging. So if you see a photo, Aaron posts a photo, and it's got people in it, a bunch of internet that I know, I should be able to person tag it and say, oh yeah, that's this person, that's this person, that's this person. But I haven't posted such responses yet, partially because I know his site won't do anything with them. So it's kind of a chicken and egg. But I would like to do that. It's a very common interaction on social media, like Facebook. For one person to post a photo, and then for their friends to tag themselves in it, or tag other people in it.
Yeah, I remember those days. That was very interesting. See, like, someone would go on a curatorial one. It's like somebody did these posts, like, or did this tagging.
Right. So we're posting photos on IndieWeb, but we're not. We don't feel. Is it just that we don't have a mechanism, or we just don't feel compelled to like tag people in photos on our sites? Like, what's going on?
For me, it's a mechanism. I'm not sure if I would tag, but I don't have one, so I can't actually.
For me, it's a UI thing. I don't have a good UI to tag
Yourself.
myself.
So if you receive person tags, you wouldn't want to display them.
I would.
Oh, okay. So you just wait to get one, and then you'll figure out what to do with it.
Probably kind of send a image.
Oh. Okay, I have another project for tomorrow.
So let me get this straight. Your project is sending things to him to encourage him to build something.
Well, I have to build something first.
Yes.
I have to build the ability to post it myself and have it make sense on my site as like, I'm tagging this person in this photo. And then once I've done that, I can send a web mention to his site with the photo, and then it's his problem to figure out what to do with it.
Yes, but you're creating his problem.
Well, that's what we do. We distribute things.
Huh?
Yeah.
I'm just pointing this out.
Problem solving.
No, I just have a question. This is sponsoring, which is somewhat off topic, but are all the things he's done over the years because you've been prodding him by sending him different types of things for him to do?
Not quite.
Okay. No, I wasn't serious, but I thought I would just.
So I'm pretty good at asking good questions.
So I think because we only have about 5 minutes before they want the room, we probably should wrap up and start packing up.
You want to put something on the screen at least, like the post types? Who's broadcasting? You have to,
What do we want up there?
like the post kinds, the icons or something. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
The post page, and then David can like point to them and say like, well, what's the point you're making, David? Like one. Okay. You're just amazed, like what is going on there? Okay. You're getting immortalized.
Excellent.
Good. That's for the audience at home.
Right. Yeah, I guess on that, let's wrap the broadcast.
I'm going to have to read that page.
You would wave goodbye to the fine people.
Goodbye. This concludes.
I learned this
broadcast
yesterday, the royal wave.
I have to get her done this one.
Yes.
All right. We'll use that.
Good night, everybody. See you again bright and early. I think we'll probably set up the stream for folks that are interested.
Yeah.
Okay.
That would be that.
Yeah.
Usually the intros and
But I'd
Oh,
imagine
definitely.
we will not keep the recording of people sitting here quietly, only the open and the closed
Oh, we
part.
might, because then you can just loop it, and then it becomes excellent like background. It's true.
So whenever I'm coding lonely at home, I can just play the video of other people coding with me. Then
Yes.
I'm waiting to see if somebody does that.
All right. Bye, everybody.